Welcome everybody to Aegis Esports. And today we've got the finals of the European League. But first, I want to introduce you to Spids, my fellow co-caster today. How's it going, Spids?
It's going fantastically. I'm really excited to see some of the best from Europe as well as one non-European battle out to see who can take the title of EMEA champion for Aegis.
Exactly. Like that one non-European is also playing today. And who is playing today? Well, it will be Washed Up Heroes, the Season 1 winners, and they'll be versing Big Flex Gamers. Now, Big Flex Gamers, I want to kind of talk about them a tiny bit because I'm going to be kind of overshadowing them later on because I'm a big Teddy fan, but you should probably watch out for these players. They're really good. We've got Nawatix, we've got Hipster Waldo, and we've also got Ghost Driver playing. Now, if you don't really know much about these players, Ghost Driver is a multiple 9-0 seasonal. I don't know what you call it. What's the one before Top Cut? The
Like open rounds. Good job,
Yeah,
Eddie.
open
Open
rounds.
rounds.
So 9-0 multiple times. He plays a lot of interesting decks that can be very very important, like in a format like this. And yeah, he's just a really great player overall. Been in the European German Masters team. He's really exciting to watch. Then you have other players like Hipster Waldo, a seasonal winner, and a very very good combo player, which can come into play because in metas like this, you don't really see combo be played, but if someone can do it at a high extent, they can definitely surprise the opposing team.
Yeah. On the other side, obviously, we've got washed up heroes who have got some of the biggest names in Europe, like Teddy. I think we all know about Teddy going second in Worlds, and I didn't know much about Teddy before Worlds. I became a huge Teddy fan watching him play Worlds. It was one of the best, some of the best plays I've seen were from Teddy. It was a really fantastic experience. And Teddy is joined with Karashi and Yangzera. Yangzera, as we mentioned, is from is he from Brazil? I'm pretty sure he's from Brazil.
Yeah, they are
Yeah,
from
okay.
Brazil.
Yeah.
Salve to all my Brazilians.
And Karashi, who is a bit of a duo with like Teddy, right? Like they've always worked together on everything. And whenever you see Teddy's name, you typically see Karashi's nearby. And they work on decks together, play together, and whenever you see them together, you should feel as if like you should be scared fighting both Karashi and Teddy at the same time.
For sure. Like Karachi is kind of the leader in this group. He'll basically put, Teddy and Yang on good decks because Teddy, he kind of does like a lot of this thing that a lot of good players do. They like to kind of hinder themselves and play bad decks just because they're absolutely broken. But at the same time, they've actually 3-0'd with Infinite in playoffs already. So I don't really care if we see, Teddy on something like that because no matter what he plays, it's amazing to watch, and last time I watched him play on the cast, I was just absolutely mind blown and have become a fan ever since.
Yeah, Teddy does have some interesting decks, and I think one of the decks in particular that I think we will see at some point has here it is now. One of the decks that we see here is like Aatrox Queen Vayne, but they're not running the 4-drop. Any? Do you have any thoughts about this deck in particular? No longer running the 4-drop.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So this is a very, very low to the ground deck. You've kind of replaced the Defector, which was thought to be one of the best cards in this list, and running Zealous Rangers Knight. So due to the nerfs, you've kind of just made this to be a lot more aggressive and put on the pace as fast as possible. You still got similar things like free catch, free blinding assault. You're doing the same shenanigans like controlling the board, but Zealous just allows you to be a lot more aggressive. And instead for going for weird scout lines with maybe like Vayne or just scout in general, you can just absolutely steamroll. And yeah, this is really, really interesting. I think Teddy's only really been playing Aatrox as well. Been playing a lot of weird stuff, but they're at like 2.8k LP right now, and a lot of that was just because of Aatrox and even after the nerfs.
Yeah, so I really like this list. I was a bit awry on it because I wasn't sure about cutting out the 4-drop, but I took a donut version of this list. Donut stole this list, and I used Donut's version that tweaked a few cards, primarily added the Bandle City Darken because it's Donut here. But playing this felt really, really good, surprisingly, not having the 4-drop. You don't miss that pressure as much as you would expect. And Zealous Ranger Knight is just such a powerful card. If you get like a spear, if you just get like 2 units and 2 weapons, you sort of just like have so much stats on such an early turn that they can't really do anything about it. And while the 4 drop is a great like weapon target, so is everything else in your deck. And being able to use your mana on your turns 4 and 5 in more different ways, I think is actually much more powerful than people give it credit for. I think in this version, you more often play Dural on 5, is what I found, compared to other versions where you might be needing to bank mana or play other units before your Aatrox. Although we weren't on Quinn, so you're probably playing Quinn on 5 if we are actually Teddy, but our version was slightly different. But just the deck looks and feels different somehow just because you take out the 4 drop. But you do this sort of like fake scouts because you got weapons and like Zealous Ranger Knight, who is absolutely like absurd sometimes, doing some really powerful things.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like you were saying with the Jarrell, there's a lot more dead space in your mid game. So instead of using
Mm.
Aegis just as a defensive weapon or something to kind of, slow down the early pressure of something when they're trying to push damage, now you're using it more just for that Jarrell in general. And in addition, because of Jarrell being nerfed, is Dark and Lodestone. Now, Dark and Lodestone wasn't really played initially, but man, this card is actually so nice, and I'm so surprised that people weren't playing this before because you can just absolutely steamroll, especially with this Zalus, so much more reliably now.
Yeah, Lodestone was something that I'm a bit on and off on. It feels great when it pops off, but if you just don't have like 2 units, it can sometimes feel awkward. But you're often mulliganing for units because that's what's more important. And the more weapons you can use, the less you need to like keep 2 weapons or something. You can just like keep the 1 weapon and go like, for like 3 or 2 units. So Lodestone's interesting. I think when I took Donut's version of this list, we cut the Lodestone for the Ballcock. But in general, I think it's interesting. I'm still up and down on Lodestone. It feels really good when you've got the 2 units and you're challenging things and you're keeping your things alive, but you've already got Spear and Aegis and Harp for this. So I'm not sold on it, but Teddy's the goat. I'm not playing this. Teddy's here.
Teddy is definitely the GOAT. Now, we've got another deck list to show, and that is Mono Kaiser. But first, I do want to talk about our sponsor. Runeterra AR have been doing absolute wonders this season, helping us out and just supporting the whole community in general. So, if you're using a deck tracker, or if you want to follow stats, choose Runeterra AR, best site out there, and it makes my job easier because look at this visual. And Spids, you want to take it away and tell us a bit about Kaiser?
So this Kaisar deck is something that I think has been seeing more and more play in this meta over the last few days. My understanding is that in terms of matchups, this is supposed to be decent into Jinx Lulu as well as Shurima in general, which is some of the stuff that we're seeing crop up more and more post hotfix. And it looks like a mid-range deck because you've got 2 mid-range colors. You've got Shurima and Demacia, like the premier mid-range colors. But in reality, it's like an all-in Kaisar combo deck. And I learnt this firsthand when I didn't draw Kaisar in some of my games. Um, it plays really interestingly where you get your evolved keywords, you're trying to mulligan for like your 2 keyword units, and then just get into Kaisar. And typically just like take over any sort of board by this state. It's really good against stuff like Jinx Lily because you play Kaisar on 5, you attack, and all their X1s just die. And it's decent against like other Shurimas because you're sort of comboing better than their Shurima stuff can often interact with properly. They might be able to quicksand, but you typically have protections for this sort of thing, and you're able to just slightly edge out in a lot of these matchups. It's a really interesting deck that I've seen crop up more and more, and I'm excited to see if it actually holds up because it's something that I don't know if we've seen it that much since the nerf. I know it was played a little bit in the Worlds qualifier rounds, but I haven't seen it as much since like, months and months ago.
Yeah, so it's been popping up a lot more, like you were saying, and I think it's also because it's slightly decent against FTR if you play it right. Now,
Right.
Kaiser is an aggressive combo deck, but if you can kind of focus and play Kaiser when you can, maybe use these early units to just bide a bit of time because of the pressure and play the Kaiser when you've got breathing room, it's pretty decent. I actually saw RoboMaster bring this yesterday and they piloted it really well. And now I understand why we are playing this deck. And Hepsil Waldo, I did bring up that they are really good on combo. So you have to have a certain type of mindset to really kind of elevate your plays. And if it's anyone who will be playing it, I want to see Waldo on this because he'll do stuff that you're like, oh, okay, I didn't even think about that. He's just doing absolutely bonkers stuff. He probably gets like, I don't know, finds a lethal, forks potential stuff, and yeah, I'm just really excited to see these matches going on.
Y Yeah, you say this is a bit like a combo deck. Sometimes you just don't draw your combo. Now we've got 3 Rite of Calling and 3 Kaisar, so you should get your combo often, but last time I fought FDR, I did not draw a Kaisar, and it was an awful type. But we're seeing the matchup here, we can see all the decks. Do you have any thoughts about the matchups, the bans?
Yeah. So okay, this is the first time I'm actually looking at Teddy's, and I'm pretty surprised. It looks like Teddy has gone for just 3 good decks. Now, Heimer Jace might be trying to beat up on potential counter picks, maybe. I think it potentially could be bad into Kaiser. It might be okay into Aatrox, but then again, your removal doesn't really do much due to the weapon being somewhat regenerative in a way where you just gain another Aatrox, and it might also be decent into Lulu. Like, it probably its best bet is Lulu, but then again, I'm just going like, "Oh, yeah, Shadow Isles can beat that," but maybe it doesn't. So, I am very excited to see how Hyman Jace would work.
Yeah, so I've pulled up the Heimer list. It's not on Ruination, so I don't think it's fully targeting this Aatrox deck, but it's on 1 Assembly Line and 2 Piercing Darkness, which makes me think it's really highly teched for aggressive builds, such as Lulu Jinx. You can heal, 10 HP with a Jace plus a Piercing Darkness, and then Lulu Jinx just does nothing. And Piercing Darkness will kill Jinx, and they can't really protect it. Jinx often has this really awkward scenario where so much removal does 3 damage, and then Jinx has 4 HP because she's flipped. But Piercing Darkness does 5 damage, so it can kill Jinx no matter what. And so I think that's the expectation with Heimer Jace. And if this is like a lower to the ground Feel the Rush, as opposed to these like mega ramp versions that we've been seeing, if this is slightly lower to the ground, it could definitely beat Lily Jinx. So I'm wondering if Teddy's lineup here is really trying to beat up on Lily Jinx.
Yeah, so like the stats is saying that Louis Jinx is slightly favored, but if you do, like you were saying, make it more low to the ground or actually just play more control cards, it does go into FTR's favor. So I need to look at the list, but I'm wondering with the ban on Hipster's side, and it might be the Aatrox. I would assume that Aatrox kinda is decent into Kaiser, and it also beats Lulu, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so my understanding of Aatrox is that it beats Lulu and it can probably just be bigger than Kaisar because your unit's a 10/10 and Kaisar is a 6/6, which is a bigger number. 10 is often bigger than 6, according to most mathematicians. So I think it could be something like an Aatrox ban. You could also get to ban out the mirror, which is nice, right? Like you're not risking the mirror, although I don't know if Teddy is going to be banning the Aatrox on their side as well. They could be banning Kaisar. It really depends what sort of combo you're going for. I presume you're banning Aatrox, right? If you're not running Ruination and Heimer Jace, you're probably banning Aatrox. So
Uh,
I'm expecting a Aatrox going away from Waldo and probably Aatrox going away on Teddy.
Mirrors are just yucky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, if I'm in a safe bet here, it probably is get rid of the mirror. Like, I don't know. I feel like every time when you have similar lineups, or maybe a lineup with a potential mirror, you just get throw it out. Put the ban on that because usually the mirror might be the best deck, and it probably has the best, you know, matchup spreads overall. And you don't really want to be trying to have a clown fiesta, which there's a bit of skill involved in mirrors, but it can come down to luck, especially with you know, tempo heavy decks because it is all about tempo in the early game at times.
Yeah. But obviously you can realize that your opponent knows that and then play around that. If you think the mirror's going to be banned because they're banning it, then you might be able to get a leg up. So there's a little bit of mind gaming going on depending on like who wants to ban the mirror first. Um, I don't know if there's any other matchups that we should be really thinking about. I wonder how Kaisar. You said Kaisar beats Fielder Rush. You said Kaisar
I
probably beats Heimer Jace?
Maybe. It might not be Hymenjist, but I'm just uncertain. I haven't seen this deck really be played much, and I might just have like, yeah, I saw someone play it yesterday, and they just bet FTR, and I'm going off of that as my matchup. So yeah, I'm not actually too positive on it, but I could maybe search up matchup tables just in case.
Results-based analysis is often the best form of analysis. If you see someone win with something, that's indicative of future performance, ad nauseum.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't trust stats. Stats aren't real. I don't believe in them.
that's not real. They don't produce any sort of information for anyone.
Just
Um,
random numbers.
yeah. Do you have any thoughts about like other things in the meta that they would have been thinking about? Like we see this matchup here, but like Aegis has an interesting format. We have to play around like all of the opponent's possible decks, and just in case you're not playing who you think you're going to be playing, are there any other like decks that both of these lineups are sort of thinking about in the back of their mind? My answer to this is probably not. I'm trying to think of like an other deck that maybe these lineups are trying to target that we're just not seeing because it's not in front of us.
Ye Yeah, I really think Teddy literally has just brought what he's been playing recently. Like, I literally just skimmed through where he was at
Oh.
2.8K, for the LP, and it was literally these decks and just playing them casually and getting like 10 to 0 and just jamming. But the bans come out, and we do respect the Heimer Jace here, so maybe there is a bit more leeway on the Kaiser, and it definitely will be Lulu Jinx's bane of existence. And look, Teddy also doesn't want to deal with the Kaiser though, and gets rid of that, which makes a lot of sense, honestly, because it probably does beat up on your SI decks.
Yeah, I guess we were very, very wrong, and I don't know how to feel about that. I'm gonna presume this is a protect the Lulu Jinx pick. If Jaime Jace is so heavily teched for Lulu Jinx, I presume we're just trying to protect Lulu Jinx as much as possible and trying to get a win with it. And that might be why like Jaime Jace was banned, but we might have a potential mirror on our hands, and we're seeing like what these are the three biggest decks in the format right now going to battle. So we have to see how the pilots like
Literally.
are able to wrangle these.
And this like Aatrox against FTR will also be interesting as well because I think utilizing your vengeances in a way to try and beat Aatrox is very, very interesting and it's very skillful. So I'm not too sure how the matchup goes with this one as well. A bit rusty, because like stats are just you know let's be oblivious to it. They're scary, all right? But like, yeah, I think if T plays it right, he might be quite happy to verse Aatrox Bane.
So while Annie's cowering in the corner, fearful of big number, I want to point out an interesting difference between Teddy and Waldo here because they've got very different Aatrox lists. As we were talking about earlier, Teddy cut the 4-drop. There's no Scout Tuffy in it. But Waldo still has that 4-drop. So theoretically, if there's a mirror, we have the definitive answer of which one is better. Also, Waldo is on the Darken Fan, which is a really interesting decision that I haven't seen in an Aatrox list since like I don't even think we tested it when we were testing for World, so I haven't seen it ever. Um, and he's on only one Aegis instead of two or three, which I think is the norm. So, and only two Bloodletters instead of three, which I also think is the norm. So Waldo's got I guess, a very Waldo deck list with the Darkened Fan. I'm curious if Pra is a really good mirror breaker because it's got elusive. I'm wondering if that's a good reason, but I
It
think
could
that's just interesting. We
also
can definitely see the difference between the lists.
It could also just be because you get free blockers on any potential swing, and also the challenger might be very important. Going free wide in
Yeah.
something that's kind of if the board is quite stalematy and you just go free wide with the challenger, that could be literally the difference maker to get through and win. So yeah, I really do like Darken Fan at times. It could also just be even heavier into Lulu Jinx and just say, hey, if I think I'm going to be versing Lulu Jinx almost always, I can put a bit of lifesteal in there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And like historically, developing two units in one action has always been phenomenal, whether it's through like unit plus stun or like house spider or something. So if we're bumping that up to three, that's insane. So I can definitely imagine a world where like both players play World Ender, but because Hipster Waldo has Prowl the Breachwalker and has the open attack, like you just are able to pull everything to the side and push like 10 extra damage you wouldn't be able to push otherwise. So if that happens, I'd be really excited because it's been a long time since I've seen the Darkened Fan. Like a long, long time. But we
And
are getting into game here. And we do have the mirror. Isn't that exciting?
yeah, talking about wanting to get rid of this because it could be a clown fiesta, but hey, they want to just start off with the best deck, and this is interesting. I would really want to try and get for as many early units as possible, and I assume some type of weapon would be good. But also in the Mirror Breaker, you probably want Valor and Harp, and Hipster Waldo has that in the Mulligan and does keep it.
Yeah, I think Harp is definitely like the mirror breaker card above all else. Like Harp plus any challenger, or even just not a challenger, just because it's unblockable. I think it's absolutely abusive. But you can respond to that with stuff like Fish Fight and your own challenges, being able to pull that unit that has the Harp and trying to like still play for the board. I think Hipster Walder has got one of the more interesting hands where you've got just a bunch of go wide units, and if we can get just like one more weapon on Hipster Waldo's side, we've got a really like interesting attack we can start pushing off. But that's not to discount Teddy, who also has 2 weapons and 2 units, and I guess we'll just see what the turns look like by turn 4, because once we have hands like these, it's hard to envision exactly how it'll look like towards the mid game.
I really like this hand from Waldo if we were attacking on evens, because I feel like if you can set up weapon into, double zealous and the 2/2 as well, you're in a really good position here. But because you don't actually have it on the defensive turn, it might be a bit weird. But saying that as well, this is just as scary. Basically, one double 2/2s here plus a 2/3 and the weapon is a lot of pressure.
I think we were too busy monologuing to realize that Teddy did a really interesting open pass here. Um, and I'm curious to see what Teddy's rationale for this was. I'm wondering if he was realizing that he's probably able to delay the game a bit more, maybe based on his hand, and was thinking that he doesn't need to develop into anything just yet. But I wouldn't have taken that pass, and Teddy clearly did, so it's definitely something to see. But I guess we're too busy talking to talk about it in the moment.
I think
But we do have.
uh
Oh, you go.
sorry, but I think a lot of the times with European players that we don't see in Americas is they love passing, and every time they can kind of think if this is going to be an advantage for us, we're going to take it. And Teddy is really good in that. One spot on Wales, they just passed straight up to play. What was it? Champion strength on Clin and Avella, and that absolutely won them games. So I really like that pass, and maybe it was just for an action base for a what do you call it? A
Step
vein
aside, heathens.
into the Aegis.
I will lead our hunt.
It could have been. And I like Hipster Waldo can attack here and get the one proc, but we get to kill one of their biggest units. And what you need to know about mid-range mirrors is often the Nexus health doesn't matter. All that matters is how the board looks. And so while Teddy's at lower HP, it will matter a little bit for sure, especially because there's overwhelm threats. But Teddy is trying to slowly gain as much board control as possible. And if Teddy can win the board before Hipster Waldo can win the board, then Teddy will have won the game, even if he's at like 8 less HP by turn 4.
This
But we
double
see.
Broadwing is so nice as well, especially with the catch, right? So we've got the Darkened Spear just in case, and we're gonna start putting a lot of pressure on. And like you were saying, Spids, it is all about board, and Teddy's kind of going with a crackback here, and just idling it out and doing quite nice with
Spare
this
the
potential
guiltless
attack.
and punish the wicked.
Yeah, what's interesting about Teddy's hand as well is that he's got these 2 challenger units. One won't be proc to this turn, but he'll have 2 challenger units, which means you're allowed to like stun lock the board in this sense. Like you're allowed to just pass and not allow them to develop things if you want to threaten your challenger. I don't think in this position it's going to matter too much. I presume we're just going to try and kill Zealous Ranger Knight. But in mid-range mirrors, and you were saying like European players love to pass, that could be like a really powerful strategy that could come in future. Um, but I do expect the attack from Teddy here, maybe equipping the Darkened Spear, but I'm not so sure, and killing the Zealous Ranger Knight. Very curious to see if you equip here, because you do get the +1/+1, you do the Omen Hawk thing, and you do get to progress your level up. But I think catch is also really important for beating what might be an inevitable like fish fight trade on Aatrox, right? Like if they play Aatrox, you play Aatrox, and they sort of fish fight each other. Having the catch is a great breaker for this sort of interaction. So I do like keeping the catch for future and trying to get more value out of it later.
Teddy might also have been just frightened of Vordo's pass as well. Maybe getting a pseudo hand read of maybe like a catch hand. So maybe was worried about that to go
Monsters
all
so
in here
wicked
and
the
put
lost
pressure
knows
on.
every
But
shadow.
now Vordo has to kind of pace it out. Just plays the vein, and I'm looking at both of these hands, and there's a lot of stalemate potential here, especially going into turn 6 if anyone can play an Aatrox, which I assume Teddy might be.
Teddy's only played one weapon, right? It's only been the Dural on the vein, while Hipster Waldo I think has played. This might be the second one. I hope I've got my counting right. Normally I just play cards and then wait for
Mhm.
Aatrox to be drawn. I don't normally think about it too much.
It
But
it is too.
yeah,
So Teddy might just try and sack their vein here. which honestly is probably the best play you can do.
I mean, you could also play Fish Fight, but I think Fish Fight's important for like the Aatrox, right? You could just also put the Darkened Spear on Vayne and then put the Dural on someone else, and then you have enough mana for Aatrox on your turn. While Hipster Waldo, because they don't have any other weapons, actually can't play Aatrox next turn, as far as I can tell. So that could be a line. But Teddy, just passing once more, not feeling a need to do this play, and I'm wondering if Teddy's trying to like catch bait this quick attack Valor. That could definitely be a line for Teddy, but it would mean that if you catch, you're not drawing your Aatrox.
Yeah, I actually really like that Darkened Spear line. We make the Vayne go up to be a 3/5. Sure, we might lose the Zealous here if it means that they can actually trade into that, but it also allows you to just kind of keep Vayne on the board and just play your Aatrox a lot faster and actually have Tumble online for 0 when it will matter.
This is a fascinating attack being lined up. So if Teddy catches the Darkened Spear, it will kill the Fleet for the Tracker. If they catch it onto the Broadwing, which does end up happening because despite quick attack, preventing Formidable from dealing 5 damage, the 1 damage is all that's necessary. And because we've got the other catch, Teddy doesn't need to respect like a catch in Waldo's hand. But Teddy also decides to let Waldo get the Bloodletters back by getting the value block with the Vayne, trying to have this like mid-range large board and getting these value blocks when Teddy can. That was a really interesting attack, and I think it kind of went in Teddy's favor.
It's just awkward because we also don't have much going on, I guess. So we are ahead on board, and we do have Zealous. It's not doing too much. I guess you can pull 2 things and push 6 damage, but it's not really doing anything, especially when you're already on the back foot in terms of Nexus health.
I guess so. And like the Broadwings do have like 1 HP. They're not doing like the most in the world. All they can do is pull stuff to the side at this point. If Teddy really wanted, he could fish fight and play for that board, but I think that's a very that's not remembering that there's Aatroxes in hand. And once you remember there's Aatroxes basically in hand already, I think it would be a premature fish fight. So I can see a world where Waldo had the better position there, just because at least Waldo has the numbers while Teddy does not. And we see the pass going into the next turn with 2 Bloodletters top decks. One of the better weapons I found in a lot of these decks, just because like Zalani and Darkenthrall are just such good like beatdown cards, and they're 1 mana weapons, so you get to do your like pseudo scout stuff, like weapon scout stuff, a lot cheaper.
Yeah, the Darkened Weapon is literally what Teddy wanted. I was actually just freaking out kind of because we're like, oh, we can't really do an Aatrox thing, but that means that we go up to 3 weapons now still? Or does the catch still make it awkward and I'm just embarrassing myself?
I think we've equipped once.
Oh, no. Okay.
But
so
I really like this attack. This is one of my favorite things to do with Zealous Ranger Knight. It's why I love the card so much, because this sort of tumble into an attack feels so good every single day. And just like giving +1/+1 to everything, buffing up like your Broadwing with the Anarcha buff. Now it can trade into Vayne, and you can attack with Vayne because Vayne's going to have 3 health tough. It lets you do some really interesting things. And I think if they play Aatrox, we might just be able to kill Aatrox, depending on how the trades line up. If my math is right. With the fish fight and pull.
Right, okay. Yeah, no, that works out
no,
really
because second
well.
Broadwing doesn't have Challenger.
Banish the immoral.
Huh. Well, they're not going to play Aatrox. There's no reason to put Aatrox into dead range. So what was I saying about killing Aatrox? Still, the pressure we're applying is really, really powerful here. We get to pull. We don't get to pull. Why do I keep saying pull? I'm so used to Broadwing having like on-play Challenger and like being able to be easily procced. But I guess I'm a liar and my pants are on fire. But this attack still is putting them low.
Yeah, we do have a pull here, but something you brought up earlier was, Nexus health doesn't really matter, and we're really just caring about the units, and we want to try and get as much trades to be favorable. And look, I don't know, we have to actually maybe block our Vayne here, and if that is the case, there could be another another consideration here to maybe block, like maybe just let this go through. And yeah, look, next itself doesn't matter. He really wants to keep the Vayne, and now this Aatrox will be played. But something you brought up just before Spids is this catch into Fish Fight is going to be absolutely devastating for Waldo.
The other thing to be thinking about is I think both of these lists are on one of Condemn. Now, Teddy has got a proc Condemn. We don't see it in hand because it isn't in hand. But I think Waldo must be thinking in the back of their mind, there are 3 Condemns in the deck. One is main decked, 2 are Vaynes. And while we can see one of the cards, and he might have a hand read on some of the other cards, you can't really hand read the Condemn that well because there hasn't been really an opportunity to play it. So I think Waldo might be fearful of a Condemn here, but passing might not be the right play either because you're going to be losing out on your developing, and 2 of your units can't block at the moment. We're just trading weapons here to try and draw the Aatrox.
Yeah, I really like that. You even just can play this like darkened weapon now for Zolani. No, not that you will, because obviously you're just trying to stop this Aatrox from being a threat here. And yeah, Waldo just has to pass. There's nothing you can really do. You're too scared of just it losing as much, as much potential chance to try and win this game. And you really need to play Aatrox without it dying.
Yeah, because like if your Aatrox dies and you don't have a good way of killing Teddy's Aatrox, it can be a bit of a difficult time. Like if you're looking at Waldo's hand, how does he deal with Aatrox at the moment without his own Aatrox? Because while he can have fish fight, what is he going to fish fight? The Zolani? He's already
Yeah,
tapped out of Zolani at this point, so he'd have to do Zolani next turn into fish fight. So you just don't have that opportunity to kill Teddy's Aatrox that you know is in hand because it automatically draws as it did just now.
and Waldo just so succumbed by that 6 mana pass there and doesn't play into the Aatrox, is really scared from that. Teddy, honestly, playing absolutely amazing that tumble this turn just to double buff up all our threats. Also, now be in the front runner here for trying to, you know, be above in tempo, and it's really going into Teddy's favor now.
What we see here from Waldo's side is like a decent Dark Enthrall attack. Now, what I really like about Dark Enthralls is that they're so easy to access, and then it's 1 mana to have a 4/3. That's a lot of stats for a simple amount of mana. And so I think Waldo might be trying to put them at a bit low Nexus HP and trying to do an attack here. But we do have the fish fight come out. Teddy isn't keeping it for Aatrox, and now the Vayne is gone.
I I think like okay, we're kind of ramping it up like oh this Aatrox is a big scary thing, but it's also all about actions and now like turn-based scenarios for how much tempo you have or how much tempo you'll produce. And because the Aatrox wasn't played that turn, they don't actually have enough units to kind of stabilize in a sense. And Teddy now almost running with this game. The fish fight has to be played, but this catch is going to be worked in a different way. And instead of killing their Aatrox, it will just be able to defend here and keep it online while having Broadwing to be the only thing that can pull their also only thing that can block. And this is more than lethal what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, we're in a. I'm gonna feel bad for Waldo a little. Like Teddy has had some cards that really just like absolutely destroy the mirror. Like I think we drew 2 catches, and that's like such an important card for like these little like minor amounts of value. When you've both got the same deck, having a +1/+1, it's so cheap, or even like a +0/+2 because you can catch things, can really just like change the game immensely. And we also had, I think, a fish fight, which is one of the most important cards. Now, Hipster Waldo obviously had a fish fight, and I think a catch at some point, but I'm not so sure on that. Maybe Hipster Waldo didn't have a catch.
Now,
But Teddy did draw like some really good cards for this mirror.
it isn't over yet as well. So there is actually a Aatrox top deck, and that keeps you in the game. I don't know if it wins you the game, but if anything, Waldo really, really is just thinking about, okay, what are my top decks and what can I do? And that will be the Aatrox spells here. So we're really just hoping our next card will be Aatrox spell.
Yeah, so I think look, my instinct was to equip like the Broadwing with the Darken weapon, the Aatrox weapon, and then do Worldender. And you do get 2 Aatroxes there, so they do like a bunch of overwhelm threats. But we actually don't get to like do any free Darkens. I presume it's probably still the correct play to do that sort of thing and threaten like a bunch of overwhelm, but I'm gonna miss like being able to play like a free Steratu or something. Or Teddy could just open World Ender and then pressure out later on, not allowing themselves to get killed by something like a fish fight. Although fish fight can only target one of these, so I guess like you're getting the fish fight out if you're developing like this, and it doesn't change too much at all. And Hipster Waldo drawing a catch, that's not what you need. You can't catch like a Rite of Negation or something. So I don't think there's very much you can do here. And this might be a hot take. This looks pretty favorable for Teddy in this position.
It looks pretty good, and look, Teddy showing the player he is. He didn't even budge with that open. I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. This has lethal, but Teddy knows when they're gonna win, and double Aatrox is definitely that. So well played by Teddy. Takes the first game for this set, and really spectacular play. Okay, I'm gonna ignore what I just said because I don't think I said it right. But
You did
very
not.
good play, very good play. But we still have a couple more games for this set, and like you said, not the best hand for Waldo, and that's why sometimes people don't want to play mirrors. But that means Waldo might need to run it back. And Spids, what do you think about this hand?
I wanted to make like a tiny comment that there was a pass on turn 2 that I think should be analyzed from Teddy's hand. But this is a really interesting hand by Waldo. So I think Raging Knight Defector could make a lot of sense when you're trying to fight Feel the Rush. So I do like that Waldo does have the Feel the Rush in this moment. Like you don't have to, it's not an either or with Zealous Ranger Knight. Sorry, did I say has Feel the Rush in hand? Hipster Waldo
Somewhat.
has both like Ranger Knight Defector and Zealous Ranger Knight. Like they're not like mutually exclusive. You can run both, and I think both of these will be really nice against Teddy's deck. And all units is almost what you want. I think like one weapon might be a little nice, but all units is just able to pressure Teddy, and I think that'll do really well. But Teddy's got a decent hand in response. We've got the Hapless Aristocrat, which is a card I've not seen for a while in these decks, but being able to block 2 things for 1 mana is pretty good. And we still got the Quietus and the Vile Feast and the Trundle. Really good Feel the Rush tools for this sort of matchup, but like a Demacia and needing blocking matchup.
So look, Teddy did another turn 2 pass, but we could talk about that pass from last game if we want to fill up some dead air.
There's already a turn 2 pass in this game. Why are you talking about old news anymore?
Yeah, look,
I think this pass
I
makes
cut you
sense.
off. So.
I think that pass makes sense. There's nothing you really want to like pre-commit. There's no reason to pre-commit like the Quietus this early. I think Quietus might be a weapon like sync, like trying to just like always hit the weapons with it. I'm not so sure. I've never played this from Feel the Rush's side. And also drawing Avalanche here has to feel really good from Teddy. And Waldo might need to play something like the Darken Spear to beat an Avalanche. Because if Waldo plays something like Fleet Feather Tracker, it's just going to be Avalanche down. So, oh, is that what we're going to see? We could be scared of something like a catch, but if we get a catch out of them, I think we're okay with that. And we still have a unit blocking. A catch would protect 2 of their units, or 3 actually, if they catch for the 2-1. So I guess we're just playing Wild Mysticism. That's an interesting line. I think I would have automatically done Avalanche as someone that's never played this deck before. What do you think about this, Aniyama?
Yeah, so I really actually do like this ramp here because it allows you to play Trundle, and the board isn't too threatening. So even if they do try and get some trades out from just the perspective of what the board is right now, you do have Avalanche. But this changes immensely because this Darken Spear with toughness does make things a bit awkward, especially now because Avalanche won't be played. But
Yeah.
like I was saying as well, this is the Trundle line you could go for instead.
Yeah, and I do think Trundle makes sense. As someone that plays Demacia from time to time, facing a Trundle as like a small Demacia, like I keep calling this pseudo scouts because it kind of plays like scouts, but like just with a few weapons. Where you've got this like go wide, you sometimes buff +1/+1 on occasion, and you keep just attacking reiteratively. Facing a Trundle that keeps like blocking something every single turn can be really painful. But Quinn here is definitely like a counter to that, right? Like you're able to at least develop 2 units at once, pull stuff to the side, and still be big. And Quinn got the +1/+1, so she's even larger than normal.
Yeah, and we've got this Quietus also top deck as well. I actually really like that because you're kind of keeping Quietus as a macro play for Aatrox just to deal with it better. Because Aatrox is kind of your best play dense control and hinders a lot of potential threats, like vengeances that could be just a full-on removal. And it allows you to kind of get back into the game as starting to stabilize. But I know that's something that is scary right now, and this is on the side of Waldo. Waldo's just doing scout things with a scout-like deck.
Yeah, but Waldo has tapped out. There's no threat of catch. There's no threat of any sort of weapon. So Teddy has a bunch of options available to him. He's got two Quietuses, a Vile Feast, an Avalanche, and, well, technically he's got a ramp card, but in my opinion, I wouldn't play the ramp card this turn. Unlike last time where it seemed to be the right play. You could do something like a Quietus plus a Vile Feast if you want to keep the unit for blocking. Or you could just do a Quietus, hope that they scout attack, and then do the Vile Feast thereafter. I think Teddy's just weighing up what he needs to do and what he can get away with both of these Quietuses and the Vile Feast. I doubt you ever Avalanche here. I just don't think that makes as much sense. But this also might be one of the better Avalanches you might get throughout the game, if that's like something you're vaguely thinking about, but oh lord. Oh, I am so wrong.
Yeah, Teddy's just passing. Teddy's like, yeah, we do a bit of passing now, then we're gonna do it now. And okay, so we were talking about how this catalyst might not be played at all, but there is a line where it can get value because you can actually go catalyst into that stairs and get a better potential on a board based removal. It obviously loses to a lot of stuff, but could be the line Teddy might have in mind, just making that as a broader assumption after he just casually passed like that.
Well, if you do the Quietus in addition to that, I think it actually can make some sense. I'd just be concerned that like 3 of these units are still going to survive that sort of interaction. Now, if Waldo attacks here, Teddy can block maybe the scout unit. Well, there's 2 scout units, so I should be a bit more specific. Ranger Knight Defector. And then do that sort of play. And I don't hate it too much, but because you also get the 8/8, right? Well, like it's not just the +3 deal everything, wipe the board, have fun. It's also like developing this 8/8, and as we were saying earlier, like Trundle's already an annoying threat. He's lost 2 units to Trundle already, and Trundle's still around on the board. And now there's about to be an 8/8, and not even Aatrox can like deal with the 8/8. So while I was anti-Catalyst, I guess I'm just not thinking hard enough about what we're actually ramping into.
I really, yeah, I really do like this play, just because it allows you to get this ice pillar online, kind of dwindle down this board, because Demacia really struggles when another card is bigger than the opposing threat, especially with a kind of challenger. It's vulnerable, but it is definitely getting rid of the Clin this turn. Yep, it is. I was gonna say, oh no, because Dark and Spear, but we do have the availability to actually buff it up past that as well.
Yeah, I think this has been a really good showing, and at least a teaching for me. I'm very bad at these control decks. I always just think I need to remove their units. But Teddy is showing that, like, if you're really thinking about how the game actually matters and sort of going wide, as not going wide in terms of LOR, but thinking wider and realizing that the way that you can easily beat this matchup is just by having 2 big chonkers that are sort of just dealing with everything. And then in this instance, it's an early trundle into a double early, hit that stairs, just absolutely blowing everything out. And I think that Teddy definitely knows what he's doing, obviously. And thinking about that in that sense, not needing to do Vile Feast here. Vile Feast looked decent to me, but seeing the position now, this is a better position, and knowing that in future that you would have this better position is definitely a place you want to be. I do like this attack first, making sure that I know you're still killing Trundle if you do hit that stairs, so maybe. Huh? Are we not doing hit that stairs this turn anymore?
No, so I think because we actually top deck Field Rush, we're just going to be slamming that, and we've neutralized the board. They couldn't really play much stuff this turn, so we're probably going to be viling, doing a bit of quietusing, and we know how the board is in any. So, okay, I want to bring up that how FTR works is it needs to manage this idea of resource threats and what they can typically play. And Teddy navigated that so well, understanding that life total doesn't really matter that much. And I'm going to go for a more play to win line, which was the Catalyst. And is going to get absolutely rewarded by that because FTR will actually put 2 10-10s on the board, and anything that could be a threat is just absolutely demoralized by something bigger than them.
Yeah. I think Teddy definitely knew what he was doing properly, and like even if Feel the Rush wasn't top decked at that time, like even going just for the If That Stairs was perfectly fine. But seeing that you've got Feel the Rush, you don't need to go into that If That Stairs line anymore. And we're gonna see everyone's favorite animation of Feel the Rush.
Yeah, it just comes on board. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, what can you do on Hipster Waldo's side? Waldo throws out the big flex. Also passes with a GG. Understands that there is no return after that. My H-Rocks can't even deal with it. It's not flipped. I'm gone. I've had enough. And Teddy takes it for the win. I want to newsflash something as well. Teddy is 6-0 in playoffs. The only person who's been winning is in Washed Up, and I really hope that might not be the case because I want some justice from Big Flex Heroes. But this was, great set to start it off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see Teddy do another 3-0. I think that would be good fun to watch, and Teddy's just a great player. So any more Teddy in my life can be very, very good. But obviously, we do want this to be like also even. So I would like to see the Big Flex team get at least one win over Teddy, world champ. Oh, not world champ, world player.
World champion allies. Nah, but Aragon's the champ, of course.
I'm aware. I also happen to watch that. I just happen to misspeak EMEA.
Well, with that, I think we'll be getting into the games a bit later, so we'll take a quick break and we'll see you all soon. So catch you later till then. Welcome everyone back to Aegis Esports. Just before the break, we saw Eddie kind of being what, their okay, I'm brain freezing. What their team implies, and that is being a hero. And Teddy has started off really well, taking off another previous seasonal champion, which was Hipster Waldo in this, you know, 3v3 format. Spids, how are you feeling about seeing this next matchup here?
This next matchup's really exciting. I really enjoyed watching Teddy play. I think Teddy did some really good forethought in all of his games, like realizing how much his Nexus health doesn't matter. It only like the last HP is the only one that matters, and you can play around that, and you can start like healing out or developing things or playing your ramp cards to get into your stuff. And if we can see more of that from Teddy, I'll be really excited because it was really exciting to watch.
For sure, and we'll probably get into the deck lists, and you brought it up, Spids. Ghosted Driver has a pretty interesting deck. So how about maybe you talk about it a bit and talk about all these exciting stuff?
So I've not seen Callista nor Nocturne. I've seen a little bit of Nocturne, but I've not seen Callista for like quite a while in these sorts of decks. So when I saw this deck in the little sheet, I was really excited to see what sort of thing this was. I knew it was going to be fearsomes of some sort, but what I find really interesting is the very specific type of splash that they've done. A one of Bloodletters and a one of Bakai Reaper. Bakai Reaper makes a lot of sense in these fearsome decks, and I think it's been an often go-to for like splashing. But often I've seen it as like a 2 of or a 3 of. But just seeing that one Bakai Reaper is interesting. It makes sense as like another one drop because you typically don't want to play Stygian on one. And then you've also got Bloodletters, one of the more powerful cards in Shurima, getting a 7/7 Overwhelm, and also just like attacking with your Dark Enthralls are both like really powerful things you can do constantly. And the spell pool with Quietus and Mark of the Isles allows you to have some like really interesting interaction pieces with the Quietus, and then protecting your stuff with Mark of the Isles, and then smashing them in for extra damage on the Nexus. I haven't seen fearsomes do that much in recent times. I think it might have been like Cephalopod was running a Noxus version where you used Legionary Charge to tutor Nocturne, and that was doing quite well. So fearsomes isn't like totally out of the blue, but it wasn't something I was expecting. And so I'm curious what it's targeting and if it shows up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of like the Blood Leaders as a one-off. I'm just thinking about kind of action-based turns, and the thing with fearsomes is you want to do action-based turns, but you don't really want to just play a one mana do nothing with that. Only if you want to set up like a certain skill play, right? But besides that, actions are very important. So I really like it as a one of, and the Kai Reaper is also a underutilized card. I feel like it has a lot of potential, and if you play it right, you can actually just get a 6/2 Kai Reaper, make them kind of trade all their cards that can trade into the fearsomes, and you just kind of stack it up and power spike into a potential amount of damage.
One thing that's important to note with the Dark and Blood Letters is that it's one of the, I think it might be one of the best Nightfall activators in this deck for trying to do it like a Nightfall activation on curve. If you want to play Nocturne on 4, I think Dark and Bloodletters or Quietus are going to be your best ways of doing that. So if you've got the attack token on evens and you've got like a really good Nocturne play, maybe they only have 3 strength units and you're able to just -1 on all of them. I think Bloodletters will also permit that sort of thing, as well as like Stygian plays. I think typically you'd want to play like a Boisterous Host or a Bakai Reaper before Nocturne if on turn 5 or turn 6. But I think Bloodletters does at least give you that permission to do it on turn 4 if you've got the attack token on evens and can push in a bunch of damage.
Yeah, like yeah, it's just insane. The blood leaders. More and more I think about it, I really like it due to how it just works so well with Nocturne because you kind of get a free free action because of that. But we get into the game here, and well, not the game, but the lineups, and this is really interesting from Ghost Driver. It almost looks like he's gone from like a traditional free good lineup from the last format and just said, "Hey, I'm gonna play in the spice," and really, what's the word? Uh, Common from Ghost Driver because he normally does play two good decks and then something absolutely spicy to try and get some wins over people.
I'm glad you clarified that only one of the decks was spicy, because I was about to pull you up on saying that Aatrox, Quinvane, and Red Gwen aren't the spiciest decks. I've seen them at least once or twice before when playing the video game. But we do have this Shurima SI fearsome deck that is at least a little spicy, in my opinion. But I'm curious what Ghost Driver is going to go for here in terms of trying to beat and ban. We've got two pretty aggressive decks, so I'm thinking we might be trying to beat the SI decks. So I presume it might be like an Aatrox Quinn Vayne ban, just because Aatrox Quinn Vayne is like the lowest of the ground deck. But some people think that like Heimerdinger Jace is more of like a mid-range beatdown deck as well. So it might be like a Heimerdinger Jace ban, especially since we know they're on 2 Piercing Darkness and the
Wow.
assembly line. But we already
Oh,
see
you
the
just
ban, and it's Red Gwen and Field Rush.
Yeah, Teddy just banning the most anti-control list on the side of Ghost Driver, and it makes sense. Like
Hmm.
Red Queen is still really, really good, and we've just seen Teddy kind of know how to beat Aatrox. I think Teddy has so many games under Aatrox that he understands how to win with it and the best ways to exploit it. And if we saw like the games before, he's just gonna absolutely run with that and try and beat up Aatrox. Yeah.
Absolutely. We do get to see the Heimerdinger Jace, and I'm curious if this version of Heimerdinger Jace will actually show up. I think one of Ruination makes a lot of sense in this deck, so I'm going to be interested to see if Ghost Driver can abuse the lack of Ruination. You can get Ruination, obviously, off Reggie, so, that'll always blow you out half the time. But we can see if, like, I don't know, when I played Aatrox into Heimerdinger Jace, my main fear was something like a Ruination. And if they don't have Ruination, you're able to just like build up your Aatrox stuff so easily and comfortably that I really am going to miss that Ruination in the Heimerdinger Jace deck. So I'm curious to see how that matchup ends up panning out if we end up seeing it. But we've also got the mirror available to us once more of the
Yeah,
of
and
the Aatrox decks.
all good. And I like, okay, I don't know about Callista, but it might be okay into Aatrox just if we can't buff up early. But I don't know. Like every time I'm thinking about this Callista here, it just falls flat because at the same time, like they have a lot of pseudo fearsome blockers.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to finally point out about this mirror is that Teddy has 0 of the 4-drop. Ghost, we just saw Hipster Waldo have 0 of the 4-drop. Ghost Driver has 1 of the 4-drop. Sort of finagling both of these versions of 3 and 0 going into the 1. Obviously with the 3 Zealous, which I guess has become the norm all of a sudden. But also running a single combat, which I think is a good card in these decks. Single combat is one of just the good Demacia cards, and being able to run it in your deck means it'll interact with things, maybe like a Heimerdinger or a Jace, and like possibly kill a Valor at some point, or annoy them because because they're scared of fish fight, but you end up just singly combating anyway. I do like the single combat. I think I hope it shows up and we get to see it played and just do something really good.
Yeah, single combat was kind of the card people weren't playing at all, and everyone was just kind of fixated on fish fight. But ever since Seku kind of got to 1,000 LP with Aatrox being, I think, the second player to hit 1,000 LP this format, but they did it, played single combat, and people were like, hey, this card's kind of good. And another thing I want to touch up on about deck selection and certain cards is Teddy with these Zealous Ranger Knights and people playing a lot of them now and kind of making this the staple of the deck is not really uncommon. Teddy has actually popularized a lot of decks or refinements that you might not be, known about. And this just kind of says a lot about his play, but not only being just a great player, also understanding the meta. Because, like, if you remember Nami Lee, that Nami Lee deck actually just popped up because of Titty and because of the stats he was playing with it and doing so well with.
I guess Teddy has like historically been like a very good showing of how to build a deck properly, how to use the best version of this deck available, and then everyone just steals off Teddy like mercilessly. If that's happened like what 4 or 5, you've said it's happened twice. I can't imagine how many times it's happened. I haven't looked at the EU ladder probably enough, but I probably now that I know about Teddy as much as I do now, I can just steal his decks constantly now. So I'm glad I can steal that idea from you. We're getting into the game. We're starting off with another mirror. I do like the catch and I do like the harps. So I think Teddy having 2 harps is really interesting. You're going to get rid of one of them, but you've got the harp. That's one of the best things that you want in this matchup.
Mm. Really just trying to go off this idea with, hey, I'm gonna try and just play for the board and be up to your, units that will get dwindled down by a potential harp player. So yeah, I really do actually like the harp. Probably always a full keep, right? There's nothing else you would really want unless you have no units, and then maybe. But I think it's always a harp keep in this situation.
I think if I was offered harp and then 3 cards I didn't like, I would still keep the harp because you've got 9 challenges in the deck. You've got Valor, Broadwing, Fleet Feather Tracker, and even if you don't put it on a challenger, putting it on like Root Out the Vermin Man, what's he called? Zealous Ranger Knight, is also like fine as well. What I do find interesting is that Ghost of Driver's got both the skins and Teddy has none of the skins. It might be a skin, what do they call a diff? A skin diff. In addition with Ghost of Driver having the board.
It sounds like someone has melanoma, but I can't bring that up. Um, yeah,
That was not
getting
the comment I
skinned.
expected, Enium.
Oh, I don't know how else you skinned this in the world. I don't know, but like we've got Vayne coming down, and then we also have a potential Broadwing might be played in for turn 4, and then the Quinn follow up with a maybe Harp is something interesting as well.
Yeah, this is an interesting position where like Ghost of Drive, they've both got the same cards. They both got Quinn. They both got Broadwing, but Teddy has the attack token on 5, and I'm thinking that Teddy might just be able to do Quinn and then put the harp on the Valor and force out the single combat. And that might just like blow out the game, being able to destroy 2 units for free, while also still having like the board that you're developing with presumably Broadwing, and we've still got the Vayne. And Teddy is trying to trade off Vaynes.
Teddy might even just like the thing with these attacks as well is you don't want to not attack because it means you might say that you don't have catch in hand, and catch is a very strong card to a point where if they do respect it, they'll have to be playing around it the whole game.
And you can also catch the quick attack weapon. So it's often better to do this when you've got the attack token. Like if you're going to trade Vaynes at any point or threaten to trade Vaynes, you should be the one initiating that so that you can threaten catch into the Darken Heart. But we're going to see Challenger, presumably into another Challenger, into Quinn on the side of Teddy. And Ghost of Driver is also going to try and develop some challenges and probably attempt to go a little bit wide, but I'm struggling to see it pay off in any sort of sense. We do have 2 Zilani weapons, so there could be a world where we're trying to like get a bunch of Dark Enthralls or get a bunch of Zilanis and do some cool stuff there, but I'm not sold by this as a future compared to Teddy's future, right?
I like the Zolani. It makes a lot of sense. You put on the Voa, get out a scout attack maybe, and then see what they have. If they pass and you just lost that Voa, you could pass on your own. Means that they can't play Zealous and means they might be behind. But another thing as well is because Teddy has a very low to the ground deck. There's a lot of times where that mid-range potential from playing something big isn't needed. So you could actually just pass here and then let's just hypothetically say they had Zealous, they wouldn't be in a rush playing it. And here goes Ghost Driver just coming out and trying to push as much damage as possible.
Yeah, so I guess the Driver isn't trying to like hostage one of the cards. You could hostage, I think, all plays except like another Broadwing. But I think Ghost of Driver is seeing that I have 5 damage available. You do win through killing the Nexus, often. Most decks do win through that win strategy. And so dealing damage now and then maybe putting them at a little bit lower so that you can do overwhelm stuff could be important. I'm just not sold on it being that important because Aatrox does say heal 8 HP on his card text, famously. So I'm not sure if like this 5 damage actually matters that much. Compared to hostaging, which was the alternative line.
I really do like the attack there, but this Quinn and Zahab is very scary if we didn't have a single, but at the same time, it feels bad to single, right? Like we might need to be forced to do this, but I just don't know if that would be good at all because like what are they killing? They're killing off your Dark Enthralls and you don't mind that because you can't attack, but it does hostage you into the point of the Defector. But Ghost Driver ignores what I say and wants to get the Valor off fast as possible.
I think it's a forced play because like that, if you don't do it then, the Valor's still going to be around, right? It's going to ping off the Challenger, and we can see Ghost of Driver's hand. The only other Challenger they have available is like Valor's Quinn. That's how it feels, but it's actually Quinn's Valor. Quinn is the champion, not Valor, according to the game. They're actually a bit wrong there. But they'll just be interrupted by a fish fight. So I think we have to kill the Valor off because if it's destroying 2 units this turn, They're going to fish fight, destroy a third unit, and then destroy a fourth and a fifth unit on the turn after. So I think it's sort of a forced play, even if it feels awful. And that's when you can do a play that forces the opponent to make an awful feeling play while you still feel fine is absolutely a fantastic position to be in. So I think Teddy must feel amazing having, well, not amazing, you did lose your unit, but knowing that single is gone. Clearly, I think that means there's no fish fight as well, because you would have done fish fight there, I think. Maybe not. Maybe you want to keep fish fight for Aatrox. Maybe you don't have that hand read. But still, getting that card out of them, one of their 3 pieces of interaction, I think still feels great. And we're going to see the Ranger Knight defect it.
Yeah, I'm surprised why we've just gone for this Ranger Knight Defector over the Aatrox. We are we just trying to put pressure here? I honestly thought Aatrox was the best play because they can't Aatrox in return and have fish fight available. But and you have catch as well, so you can kind of deal with any potential threat here. So I'm really surprised by this Defector play.
Yeah, the fact that you've got the extra 2 mana and can threaten fish fight, I think makes Aatrox just seem so appealing. I'm wondering if we're doing something weird like open attacking fully and then tumbling and attacking again. But if Teddy just plays Aatrox, that sort of play doesn't even work that well either. So I'm very curious by this play. It seems Teddy's also going to scout attack. Is Quinn at 2? No, because they didn't attack last turn, so Quinn's not at 2.
Yeah, but Teddy just utilizing this harp, trying to get it on the advantage here, and this is why harp is so good in Demacia matchups. You just either push 5 through, they can't really do anything about it, and it's just really awkward now. Defector can't even get a potential attack in because now this Quinn has gained more attack over their potential toughness.
Quinn's flipping, right? Quinn attacks and then flips and pulls something to the side.
Yep, that is as well. If you don't know, Tumble does give you a rally on the basis of having Scout on a unit, and this is honestly what Teddy wants. He'll pull the 5/3 here and push 5 damage if they want to, but wants to kind of take it slow and just going to use this fish fight for a better swing.
Yeah, I'm thinking Teddy might have lethal here because there wasn't an Aatrox and not getting the healing from Aatrox. You're able to swing here, you're gonna pull the Dark Control to the side, I think. And I think you might just be able to attack with Quinn just enough, especially since you can develop units next turn like your double challenges and your quick attack weapon. I'm curious if Teddy's seeing a lethal line. But doing the tumble, obviously, to get the rally was really powerful, and Teddy being able to flip that Quinn, I think will actually do well here.
Yeah,
and we're getting the
we're slightly off, so I think we'd be 2 off if we full swung, but
Just like hunting thresher geese.
this is okay. We're still getting the Quinn out, and it means the Broadwing does kind of disappear off the board. It's okay. This is really interesting now because even though Teddy looks ahead, Ghost Driver with this potential extra mana might look okay, but I forgot about, look, Scout is confusing and Teddy still has an attack token, and yeah, you're right. He just goes for the swing here, and this is lethal.
Well, sort of, kind of. They still get the block, but we're going to develop units, and I think unless they develop, what does Ghost Driver develop? Because Ghost Driver can develop 3 units, and Teddy can develop only 2. But we've obviously got the Quins.
Yeah, so it's still one off, but yeah, the development is something here. we might need to develop. It can't be too hasty, and like you said,
Well, we can open
play
attack with the
a-
Scout, but we can develop afterwards, right? I think that's the logic Teddy's going for. Like we Scout and then develop afterwards, because the Scout attack lets you attack twice in a turn. Famously, that's what Scout has done historically.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, so I was going off here. I was thinking about what I just said, and yeah, it is not lethal yet. Kind of overhyping, and look, I mean, it's Teddy being Teddy. You kind of overhype a lot, but Ghost Driver is still in it. Has a potential to just play units, and is just trying to stabilize as much as possible.
Yeah, so Teddy will be going, if he develops as much as he can, 4 wide, and Ghost Driver can go 4 wide if and only if he plays Quinn, is my understanding. Alternatively, well, he can't play Aatrox, so I guess he will play Quinn. Or Teddy's just going to develop the Aatrox, which makes sense. You don't need to go all in on this win condition because you don't know what's in Ghost Driver's hand. If Ghost Driver does go wide enough and then play something like an Aatrox without you having your Aatrox on the field, you could be slowly whittling down your chances at victory. So I think going for Aatrox does make sense here. Like, because Aatrox still destroys a unit without trading down, right? So I do like the Aatrox here. I'm trying to squeeze in a lethal, but it's not guaranteed, and I think Aatrox is perfectly redeemable here.
Yeah,
Just allowing yourself to get the Aatrox. While Ghost Driver doesn't have the Aatrox down, they still need to do that 6 mana sync before they can get their Aatrox down. But we are going to see the Bloodletters to force Valor to pull the Dark Enthrall to the side, which I think is a powerful play, and it means that you're not losing your Quinn unnecessarily, and you're probably developing Quinn into Aatrox next turn, would be my expectation. We also have Condemn, so if they do play Quinn, we can Condemn out the Quinn and try and get these, like, tempo-y plays. I don't know if that's all that necessary, but it is definitely an option. But without a tumble, we can't actually attack on our turn, on the enemy's turn. So it's a little bit unfortunate. Normally, you're so used to having tumble that you just attack on everyone's turn. But Teddy already used his tumble, so he can't do that just yet. We're going to see this trade, and we're going to keep the Valor, which I think is really good. I actually really like this play a lot. We're not worrying about the development that Ghost Driver can do, and keeping the Valor on the field gives us a free unit that we weren't going to have otherwise.
honestly, I was wondering why we didn't play the Fleet Feather, but keeping up the Condemn is really interesting, and just having as much scout as possible and as much challenges is putting this game set in a weird position. Now you're not really thinking about potential threats of how the opponent can win. You're just thinking about how you can outboard them. So Teddy is really understanding how to utilize another axis of play here, and going wide enough might be it, but we will be losing this Quinn. So at the same time, even if he wanted to go for that type of axis of a play, it won't really be much here, especially because Ghost Driver can now get down there Aatrox and Valor.
Yeah, so we could have kept that Condemn to try and deal with this sort of play, to try and kill a Valor plus a Bloodletters, and we knew Bloodletters was in hand. So all they needed was Valor or Quinn, and they would have been able to kill our Quinn. I don't know why I'm saying our. I'm not Teddy, by the way. Just forethought, I'm not Teddy. But kill Teddy's Quinn, which is something we probably wanted to avoid. But we do get to keep our Quinn, so we're probably down 1 net unit by doing that, I think, if that math checks out. So it's not the greatest. And we're going to see this play that I was talking about a lot in the last set, where Fish Fight gets countered by Catch. And we saw that here. And Ghost Driver is possibly able to develop enough units and stay out of this. Now that they played Aatrox and has healed too, even if Teddy develops a unit and tries to open, it won't work. So I think Teddy's going to have to now go for a Worldender line. I think. Am I right, Annie? It's your turn to speak.
Yeah, no. So I was just trying to think about the potential lines here. I think Worldender is definitely the correct play. We've got Aatrox on board, and right now we can also play the Aatrox weapon, so you could get double Aatrox. So
well, yep. Sorry, I just wanted to quickly say you can put it on the Challenger bird, because Challenger is a granted keyword. It means that Aatrox will have Challenger, which means even if they do their own Worldender, you get to pull the Dark Enthrall and guarantee that lethal.
Right, and not only that, but it's such an interesting game plan that Teddy has kind of switched from resource management to actually going wide, and now is just going over the top. And Teddy just took that pass, and we'll be playing the Aatrox weapon. Ghost Driver, we know that they have nothing in hand, can't even play the Worldender, and just has to kind of sit here. Might play the Vayne. We've got a Tumble, but Tumble doesn't do anything when you just already ahead with this much Nexus health. So Teddy just waiting out here to just play a Worldender, and this might be it, Spids. This might be another game win for Teddy.
I think so. I think there was no way for Ghost Driver to actually come back from this, which is unfortunate for Ghost Driver for sure. But I think we've sort of outed ourselves as Teddy fans, unfortunately. And so I'm at least a little excited. Because I really like that play, getting the Challenger bird to have that Aatrox weapon, so that Aatrox can challenge whatever they want and get the win, guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, like, there was so many different levels of play, and Teddy already had an understanding of what he was going to do on a macro sense. And I'm pretty sure Teddy probably thought about that all around like turn four, try to make as much potential game winning threats and diversify play that no matter what, there was just too much pressure, and that wheel to ender really did secure the win and did it pretty cheekily with a double Aatrox.
Yeah, pressuring on as many axes as possible allows you to push one when the opportunity arises. We've got now Heimerdinger Jace versus Aatrox. Remember, Heimerdinger Jace, this version has 2 Piercing Darkness, 1 Assembly Line, no Ruination. And we're going to see a kill of the timer. I don't know why I said a kill. Most people just call it a mulligan. But also keeping the Hextech Handler. I'm
And
passing the baton on to you anymore. It's your turn to speak.
yeah, I've been trying to just slow down as much as I can on casting because I get overzealous and I want to try and not accidentally pog out prematurely. So, but I mean, like, okay, so Teddy is probably passing because we see that with the little indicator there. So, Ghost Driver, don't think they'll pass here. They'll probably want to get as much value from this attack as possible because normally how side decks, especially Harmon work, because they normally pass the turn 3 and then do their power play, which is a turn 6 spell that we see in the hand of Teddy. Wow.
And we see Ghost Driver doing an open pass. I think I might be wrong here, but has Teddy passed on 2 every single game so far?
I think maybe Teddy 2
Um,
pass.
Ghost Driver open passing here. I think trying to threaten stuff with the Challenger Bird and willing to burn the 3 mana, which I think is fine because Ghost Driver does have a hand that does lend itself to developing more and more later. We can just do something like Fleet Feather into Quinn into Dural over our next few turns. We don't actually need to attack here when we could be threatening something. What we're threatening, I presume, is an assembly... Not assembly line. What's the production surge? I think you're trying to threaten production surge, like kill the elusive or kill like a 2-1 with your Challenger units. But it gets punished by assembly line, which is, as I was mentioned, a one of that I think is trying to beat these mid-range decks. Just a little. As well as Jinx Lulu, is my memory of why I think assembly line might be in this deck. But we're going to see the Darken Spear to at least kill one of them, and I think that pass was really, really good. I quite liked it.
The pass was really good game knowledge by Ghost Driver because like Ghost Driver understands that the best power play from Hyman Jace is usually on turn 3, and they can't afford to actually pass it. So we've kind of understood that a lot of times you want to be on board and try and get as much value as possible and kind of trade down for your opponent so you can be ahead. And Ghost Driver just doing that with that pass was really, really well played.
Yeah, and I think Ghost Driver is going to go for, I presume, an open attack here, just so that it doesn't lose to something like a Shock Blast. So what I'm expecting is to see like Zilani Weapon on the Fleet Feather Tracker trying to kill the Quick Attack unit. I think that's my expectation, and I think we can block down here so that Broadwing might also be able to get a favorable trade, but I'm not so sure about that one. But I do like Teddy's hand. Teddy's got a bunch of units, which is really important against Demacia. And we've also got the Heimerdinger, which we can see Ghost Driver doesn't have an interaction piece for Heimerdinger besides Challenger. We don't have Fish Fight, we don't have Single Combat. And while Teddy has to worry about those constantly, Heimerdinger will probably come down at some point and get some value. I just don't know when that'll be. It might be in like 4 or 5 turns. But Teddy's
Wow, on the
got...
pass here.
Yes.
Like you could have Quietus here, but I really, really like this pass just so you can have Shock Blast available. Really, really nice here. And wow, this Jarol being played over just being a weapon, and we brought this up earlier, and this is a lot of the play you can do nowadays because you don't really have much of a mid game anymore due to the changes of this deck.
Yeah, I think this develops really interesting. Look, I've tried to guess Teddy's plays. I think I've been wrong more than right. So I'm going to guess that it's Shock Blast, but I'm going to assume that I'm also wrong. But I do like the Shock Blast here. Finally, I got a Teddy play right. No.
Oh no,
Never mind.
Teddy heard you spits and was like, "Ah, no, I might do a bit of trolling, maybe a bit of production surge." But production surge is also kind of good if you kind
Yeah.
of do, it just combats with the board, and it's going to buff. So I understand why Teddy is taking their time there, and no, doesn't want to do that either, and goes with the shock blast, maybe.
We'll never know. We just have to wait for this timer to tick down. I think the issue with production surge is if you get something like the 5-1 and the 1-1, that's like a really bad roll from the production surge. Because I know it'd be a 6-2 and a 2-2, but I think that'd just be like too subpar. Every other roll I think would be great, but at least this is slightly more guaranteed, is why I'm assuming it's being played like this. And we can just play production surge next turn as well. And shock blast I think is worse on our defensive turn. I think it's better as an open attack, like or development punisher. I'm assuming. But we still get the attack here, and we're pushing 1 damage. Isn't that fun?
This is really well played by Teddy. Teddy goes for that shock blast, but what it does is it enables Ghost Driver to kind of trade down. And because you trade down here, you can actually go wide with this production surge and start doing what Heimer Jace does and be very mid-range heavy. But no, decides not to do that, gets the Heimer down as well, which is honestly such a better play because you have Clytus online to get rid of this Aatrox weapon and then play Vengeance. So I really, really like this play, and Teddy once again understanding what is the right line on a macro sense.
Knowing mana points as well, right? How does Ghost Driver kill Heimer? We need to play Aatrox to have enough beef to kill Heimer, but then we don't have enough mana for single combat or fish fight. Our alternative plays would be the one of Ranger Knight Defector, but that would be a two-sided fish fight or a single combat. That's two specific cards they need to have when they didn't play Ranger Knight Defector on 4 or any other time they had access to do it. Every other card that they could have doesn't have enough strength unless they've also got like a quick attack weapon or the Bloodletter's Blade, and it's just 2 or 3 cards that mean that Heimerdinger can come down safely, and I'm going to assume, because Teddy's probably thinking about this, that the Shock Blast last turn was also leading towards this Heimerdinger this turn, incentivizing Ghost Driver to do those trades and allowing Heimerdinger to come down safely, knowing the mana points.
Yep. Yeah, Teddy honestly just really, really understanding every mana he needs to kind of have and literally what play their opponent could do and utilize it in a sense. And wow, very interesting getting Dark and Full off. But I actually really like this when I'm thinking about it because now we're gonna change into this go wide strategy. And look, this Aatrox is fine, but if we can Vengeance it, it'll probably slow down the game enough. And if maybe Ghost Driver doesn't have a weapon-based, a minion-based hand and has a weapon-based hand, this gets awkward. But that can't be the read, right? He must have some units.
Both of these top decks were really, really good. I think Fish Fight was an absolutely insane top deck for Coastal Driver. I think it might have been the best top deck. But Teddy getting the Jace is also quite a nice top deck as well. And are we going to see the Aatrox spell in EMEA? Is killing Heimer that important?
It's so awkward, but you have to tap under that Aatrox there, and you might just need to play this Aatrox spell because you're so behind otherwise. You don't really have much stuff to do besides playing a pseudo unit, but you can only play one of them next turn, and if we have a very go wide strategy, this gets really, really awkward for Ghost Driver.
I think we've been talking up Teddy's plays a lot, but we have to also realize that Ghost Driver, while he had some units earlier, he doesn't actually have any units to play now, and thus, like, I think he's had a pretty awkward hand, right? Like, he was incentivized into doing those trades earlier. Maybe they were wrong considering the lack of units that he's got now, but only being able to play 1 unit every turn now because all these units cost 8 mana. And then there's another 8 mana unit he's just drawn, while Teddy is able to go wide with these production surges. I feel bad for Ghost Driver here.
Wow, but maybe there is some. No, it doesn't matter about justice, but I mean, like, Teddy going more wider would have been better just because you get actually more additional stats because of how Hextech Handler works. But then again, double production surge doesn't mean anything here because you actually get the challenger off. This just makes a lot of things insignificant. You probably didn't want to go wide. This is
20, right?
11.
No, yeah, it's 20.
It's 20 damage. Teddy actually just has
the
lethal
mathematician.
there. Wow. Okay. That double production surge coming in for the game. Wow. Insane. Maybe going wide wasn't good. If that production surge ran, if it casted up to a multitude of units, you couldn't go for that double production surge line. So wow, what a game, and Teddy just running with it again.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I presume Teddy did have that hand read about the lack of units, right? Like Teddy, Ghost of Driver not developing those units, I think showed that his best play was going to end up being a Darken weapon. And so having that in the back of your mind, I think most of the options that you would have gotten off the production surge would have actually led to that something akin to a lethal. So I think that was really heads up by Teddy. Or maybe it was just serendipity. We have no clue as of yet.
Yeah, like we do need to kind of step it back as well. We have been talking up about Teddy, but yeah, Ghost of Driver sadly didn't have a hand that they wanted, and it's very unlikely to have a very heavy weapon hand just because how the deck is built. But yeah, very very unfortunate. Ghost of Driver sadly can't actually take it out, and I I know Big Flex gamers really don't want Teddy to run with this game, so Naltix will have to step up to the plate and try and take Teddy out here.
Yeah. On the topic of the weapons, Ghost of Drive is only on 10 weapons. I think people range from about like 8 to 12. So 10 is like on the lower, half lower end. I think 10 might be like the general average. So drawing what, it was 3 or 4 weapons in that game? That's just like not the business. And you already played a weapon as Dural, but I think we might be going towards a break.
We will be. So with that, look, we'll be back and we'll see you in around 5 minutes. So stay tuned for Teddy versus Naltix.
Time slows down when it can get no worse. I can feel it running out on me. I don't want these to be my last words. All forgotten, 'cause that's all they'll be. Now there's only one thing I can do. Fight until the end like I promised to. Wishing there was something left to lose. This could be the day I die for you. What do you see before it's over? Blinding flashes getting closer. Wish that I had something left to lose. This could be the day I die for you. This could be the day I die for you. This could be the day I die for you. This could be the day. Everything I know, everything I hold tight. When to let it go, when to make them all fight. When I'm in control, when I'm out of my mind. When I gotta live, when I gotta die, gotta die. Everything I know, everything I hold tight. When to let it go, when to make them all fight. When I'm in control, when I'm out of my mind. When I gotta live, when I gotta die. This could be the day I die for you. Feeling like there's nothing I can do. This could be the end, it's mine to choose. It's taken me my lifetime just to prove What do you see before it's over? Blinded flashes getting.
Welcome back, everybody, to Aegis Esports. I'm here in Nearmore with my fellow co-caster once again from the break, Spids. Hey, Spids, how's it going? And are you ready to watch this potentially last set, but maybe not?
I'm very excited to watch this last set. I'm enjoying watching this Teddy gameplay. And at least we're guaranteed to get all 3 games from Teddy. And not as in like he's guaranteed to lose one and do a 3 in the best of 3. I mean that like he didn't lose earlier, so we get to see 3 games from Teddy. But I do also kind of hope to see Teddy get upset, so we can see more gameplay from both teams and the other players, not just from Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're gonna keep reiterating, right? Because we don't want to sound biased, and like, even though Washed Up Heroes as a team has been showing exceptional win rates and just absolutely obliterating the competition, anyone who can kind of bring this back is Nalotix. Nalotix is probably the most underlooked onto the team, especially if you don't know the European scene. But they're known for reverse sweeps, not reverse sweeps, but sweeps in general. They did it last week, so if they could do it last week, they might be running hot. And hey, Teddy might not be as scary as he thinks and is ready for the challenge.
Yeah, and Nautix does have a lineup that has some of like the most powerful decks in the lineup in the game, right? We do have the Jinx Lulu, we also have Katarina Leona, and finally Ophelia Seraphine. But we're going to look at this Lulu Jinx here, which I think is a stock standard Lulu Jinx, as far as I'm aware.
It does. So Electro Harpoon, you could justify that isn't standard, but it is at the moment. There's not really much other people are running. You could be on like weird purple berry stuff. I know people also like to kind of go for the broken ball list, which actually stops running Sneezy Biggle Dust and goes all in on burn. So there's another way you can kind of play it, but Nalotix here just going for the more favorable staple deck, and it's really interesting looking at this deck and what they're bringing, and it looks like they're just going for free, lineups that have good decks in it, which is a bit awkward for this, format because you kind of don't want to overlap in decks because if someone can target them, you kind of just lose. But if they know what they're doing, they might have a reason for bringing Lulu Jinx twice.
I mean, Lulu Jinx is one of the most powerful decks, even if it's not like some sort of crazy, we're targeting this, we're going to win through like immense targeting. You're still bringing like the best decks, and they have to respect that constantly. If you've not seen this Lulu Jinx deck, by the way, maybe you've not played ladder for the past, like, I don't know, couple of weeks. The main point of this deck is you do Lulu plus Chompers, and you do this sort of like go wide, flood the board strategy with all your 1 and 2 drops. Use Squeaker and like your 1 scrap heap to sometimes get larger units, and then you finish it off after you've spat out your whole hand. You do Jinx, you burn the Nexus. It feels really powerful constantly, and it's an absolute like annoyance to fight against because they've got all these little thinkers that you can't go through, and then Lulu and Chompers just kills all your important units, and you sit there crying with your poor pathetic like 2 strength units, and you suffer. If you've just not seen this deck, maybe you don't play ladder and this is your first viewing of LOR since like, I don't know, Kaisar.
Yeah, and there's a lot more dynamic to this deck than it looks. People might consider this to be almost like a year replica, but it's more than that. You have a lot more mid game potential, And unlike trying to maybe play Yordles and Arms as fast enough with your substitution being Biggle Dust, it's kind of the complete opposite. You're looking for Biggle Dust to be your actually power spike ender, and if you play it early, you're gonna regret it. So I'm really interested to see how Malatix plays this, and I feel like a lot of the time people are too aggressive with it, and if you're a good player on this, we're gonna see it maybe be played slow and use stuff like Sneezy Biggle Dust for a level out.
The last card I want to mention in this is Beard the Bellringer. I think this card is absolutely bonkers, and the amount of times I've seen a 4/4 Lulu or like a 6/5 Jinx has just felt like miserable every single time I've seen it. I think Beard sets up some of like the worst things that it can feel. Let me start this sentence again. When fighting this deck, Bird sometimes sets up like the worst feeling uh, game states because you just see this massive Lulu or this massive Jinx, and it just throws you out.
It'll definitely help against Heimer Jace. I think if we can get
Mm.
Bird onto the Lulu, you start steamrolling. So we get to actually see the full deck list from Nalotix here, and very interesting lineup. We actually have Cat Leona, which is a very aggressive deck, and then you have Seraphine Philios, which a lot of people are actually playing this right now just because you're trying to play more engines due to Bar being 7 mana, and it allows you to stabilize better.
I wonder what the bans are, because like from memory, when we said we were looking at the first lineup, where Big Flex Gamers already had brought Lulu Jinx, and from memory, Teddy didn't ban the Lulu Jinx, and we were saying that this might be a target Lulu Jinx lineup, depending on how these decks are built. So I think Teddy might end up banning Katarina Leona, just because I'm imagining Katarina Leona does decently into all of these decks with either stuns or with just having like big units that SI can't really deal with properly. You play Sun Guardian, what are these decks going to do?
I I think so. Like, yeah, I'm a bit concerned about what we're banning and what we're like maybe targeting. You could be good into FTR and Heimer Jace, which is weird to say because like aggro initially isn't good, but stat says that it is. And Leona is a weird type of deck where you have a lot more mid range potential, almost like a Demacia deck. So you can kind of win through that. But this Ophelia Seraphine is going to have a tough time into both of those decks. I feel like due to Quietus and maybe a Shihu.
Well, I got the bands wrong at the very least. Any more? Didn't you say stats don't matter? And then, like, just now you've said according to stats. I'm a little bit suspicious of your
Um,
like cognitive biases. But we did
they
get to
don't
see
matter,
Kata.
but
No, any? It's my turn to speak now. I get the
uh,
baton for now. Katarina and Leona was banned, as well as Heimerdinger Jace, respecting again this like piercing darkness, like double piercing darkness, this go wide, trying to protect again the Lulu Jinx. And Katarina Leona was banned. I guess that pressure is just like so high that it needs to be going. And Ophelia Seraphine, what do you think about that into the other two decks? It's
do
your
I speak
sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so rude.
now? Yeah. So Seraphine is okay. It'll like be a bit iffy into Shihu, but you do run GE. I think maybe in this list I don't actually. I'm kind of going off what I saw from another player, but you might be running those cards to be a bit better under control. So there is a few things you can do, and seeing how Seraphine Targon is now and how it can kind of shape up to Aatrox, it's not a horrible matchup. So I think these bans are fine, and then Seraphine has some room here.
I would like to apologize for my rudeness. In my defense, Enimo said during the break that he doesn't mind getting constantly verbally abused. So I think I'm slightly vindicated. But we're getting into game here. We're seeing Lulu Jinx finally, after not having seen it in the last set, versus Feel the Rush. And we've got Zornite into Jury Rig, and we've got this Sneezy Biggle Dust, which might set up like a really good open. What do you think about these draws and this mulligan?
I really like this mulligan here. This is really good. We kind of scared for the Avalanche, but this Jinx in hand is also very nice. So you're not too, it's not too horrid to go wide, just because you've got the back end of like the Jinx here.
Yeah, I do think that Jinx could definitely be like a really powerful card here, since we're also not seeing like a Vengeance or anything from Teddy's side. If Jinx can stick and do what Jinx does and does like 11 damage just based on 4 mana, we could see something really, really powerful come out of this Jinx. But Niantic does have to worry about both the Vial and Blighted Ravine and Avalanche, so there's a lot to be powering through. with like regular units, because you can't just win only with Jinx. You do need to do at least a little bit of physical damage with your units. And I'm
It
wondering
would
if you
be.
take Tiny Spear or Shield here.
I honestly think Spear is the case, and yeah, just wants to try and get as much damage through, try and work around these potential, slow spells. And I really like this. Teddy just holding off on the Vial means Nalotix might actually play into the Vial as well here and play another one, just because a lot of reasonable players might just throw out the Vile Feast. And yeah, Nalotix thinks that there might be a chance no Vile is here, but Teddy just utilizing this pass on turn 2, showing why he's turn 2 Teddy, and will probably play the Vile out.
One thing to note is that Teddy is not on something like the Withering Wail, which I would have expected if he was trying to target Lulu Jinx. But I guess Withering Wail is just like too old news. It's all Foundation bids. So not having that Withering Wail means that you can definitely go for these spears constantly, or at least the one spear that was taken, and try and push that damage through, because your health doesn't matter that much. The difference between 2 and 1 only matters for Vile Feast. But the second Vile Feast top deck from Teddy,
That is so good, but I think Nalotix now is just trying to gain some value from this open and might Tiny Spear with a Jerry-Rig. It doesn't feel good, but you probably have to respect this Avalanche.
the Avalanche is such a blowout that you have to, but simultaneously, maybe you can't win by just doing that open. You would be pushing, in theory, 4 damage, right? Or 5 damage? No, 4, because they just block whatever you Tiny Spear. Right? No, 5, because you buff the Jury Rig. But then they just play Vile Feast.
Yep. Like, yeah, it's another old thought of basically saying, hey, if this matchup is bad, then I'm gonna try and do all I can to try and win. And sometimes you just have to say Avalanche doesn't exist, and you have to always go from play to win from the very, very start. But then again, this is actually favored for Lulu Jinx at times, and Teddy just throwing out this Vile Face and neutralizing as much, potential damage as they can.
I can see why it's favored for Lulu Jinx, but not having the Lulu means that everything's just dying to like small amounts of removal, such as the Vile Feast, such as the Avalanche. And now it takes drawing like what? 4 units that only have 1 HP against Teddy drawing both Vile Feasts. Just like, it can't feel good. And Teddy is now able to threaten this Avalanche, threaten this Blighted Ravine, have Quietus now, and is just going to like absolutely wail on Nawatik. So I think this game is truly going to come down to, unless the draws change up a little bit, come down to this Jinx. And if Teddy can deal with Jinx, or if Jinx is able to deal 4, 8, 12 damage. And we see an
In a
open
pass.
pass.
I absolutely love this. Teddy understands that there is literally no threat to do anything, right? The only way that Nalotix can kind of find some breathing room as a power spike turn with units. So if you just keep up all your potential board wiping removal, it won't become a problem here. And Teddy just utilizing this so well and making Nalotix play into this pass.
Yeah, like if Teddy, let's say Nawatix takes this pass, Teddy just constantly passing down, like doesn't work for Nawatix. Like Nawatix needs to develop stuff, especially to remove these units, remove these cards in hand for Jinx. So Teddy, realizing that he can block next turn with the Spiderling, can just like pass constantly. He doesn't need to play anything at all. He doesn't need to ramp unnecessarily. He doesn't need to do like a quietus or anything. He can just constantly pass. And I do hope to see at least like 2 or 3 more passes from Teddy. Not necessarily right now, but just in general, because I think Teddy's passing really goes to show like being wary of how much you can get away with, and keeping cards in hand is often better than keeping cards on the field. But we're going to see the ramp here.
Yeah, and this almost leads to like some potential of damage from Nalotix if they don't have a Vengeance, which they don't, but we do actually have Quietus in hand, so it's so well played because Teddy is like literally thinking about every potential possibility of like how their turn can be played here, and is going to pick the best line almost every time. And playing this Quietus in here to stop, this full damage coming from the Jinx, while also being able to start going into your power plays with Trundle is very, very nice.
Does this Sneezy top deck ruin everything? I guess you can just discard Sneezy and still get your Rocket, but without Vengeance, like Teddy's going to need to commit 2 Blighted Ravines or Blighted Ravine plus Avalanche to kill Jinx. If there wasn't a tiny shield in hand. So having gotten rid of 2 Vile Feasts and not having like an instant removal such as Vengeance, this Jinx is going to stay on the field. And as we were saying earlier, this is how Nautix is probably going to win this game, through just constant Jinx pressure. Because I'm pretty sure if he discards Bickle Dust, it will be 4 damage to the dome. And presumably 4 damage to the dome next turn.
And Teddy is probably just going to sit back, just once again, just waiting up for what they're going to do. Because with this play from Nautix, you kind of have to just show your hand. And when you show your hand like that, it gets kind of awkward. But yeah, just absolutely doing what we were saying before, and turbo flipping the Jinx, and might not even play into the Avalanche and put some type of pressure on it, but has to play it anyway. And I like using the shield there just to get out of any double AoE spells.
What's good for Nautix is that if Teddy Avalanche is here, like Nautix gets 5 damage in with the Jinx, so I don't actually think Teddy's Avalanche is all that good. I think it might be more likely to something like a Blighted Ravine or a Pass or a Trundle or something, because just doing Avalanche here would mean that Nautix gets to put in 5 damage here, and I'm really liking, surprisingly, Nautix's position. I think it's actually a really good position to be in, and he's able to threaten a lot, especially next turn, only because we know that there isn't a Vengeance in hand.
Yeah, really good point. Like sometimes you just think, oh, yep, Avalanche kills the little things, and you forget. Oh, I also sometimes run little things in my deck, and that is the Tutu. But Teddy just getting up the Trundle understands now that this Avalanche doesn't really do much here. We can kind of still block multiple things, and they only really push 3 damage plus the rocket, which is 7, putting them on 8 after this turn, but. It's a scary range for Teddy, because that also means 2 rockets can be the decider for this matchup.
It looks like 2 rockets, but little do you know anymore, Blighted Ravine heals the Nexus too. So it will be 3 rockets, or it might be 2 rockets plus like 2 pieces of burn or something. I really like this attack without the units, being able to threaten this 2 damage and not unnecessarily trading into the Trundle. I think I would have probably done the extra attack to push in that extra 1 damage. But I do like just like not allowing them to get any
talking about extra damage, okay.
Yeah, we do get the Get Excited, which does do 3 more damage to the dome, which means that we are able to beat certain healing ranges. And Teddy during She Who Wonders is nice, but it won't come out for a few turns, so it's a bit of a brick.
Yeah, just this Get Excited is so well placed here for a top deck. They can't double Ravine, and you only can really. So action-wise is like, sure, they can maybe heal out of this, but if we get a burst spell, this might be over if we're looking at hands right now. But wow, Nautix just pass. I really like this too. Understands that there is no whale in the deck, and the only thing they can actually do here is play a Ravine or Avalanche.
Yeah, that's a really interesting pass. That's fascinating. I guess if Teddy does pass back, we are pushing damage that we may not be pushing otherwise, but that's a specific hand read that you're trying to bait them into something. I'm not so sure about that one, but what do I know? I'm an America's player, and these guys know how to pass. They're from Europe.
All they've been doing is passing, and like I feel like every time they do pass, it's almost as optimal as it can be. I honestly love that pass so much. You're kind of, it's weird because you are actually pushing similar amounts of damage. You're actually doing, you are actually doing the same amount of damage, and maybe that Get Excited might have more versatility later on, because if they can heal out, you might actually want to keep that Zornite. So yeah, really interesting play.
And we're going to see what we draw here. If we draw a Pyro Cannon, we have lethal immediately, provided they don't draw something like Third Vile Feast. And we're going to get a Get Excited.
Jinx here. Another one. The third Jinx comes from the top. Get a Catalyst of Eons. But this might not be lethal yet. We have to sack the Trundle, but because we actually given an advantage for Teddy to have an action-based play, we can play Ravine into Catalyst and actually stay out of it here for 1 more turn.
That's probably their best top deck, but simultaneously, it's not a game-winning top deck. It's a top deck that prevents you from losing, but I don't know if it's a top deck that allows you to win. And so while Teddy can heal 5 here and Nawatix can only deal 7, Nawatix will be able to keep this unit until the next turn. And it just won't be enough because they can't avalanche. They can't kill this Jinx. They need to heal with the Catalyst of Eons. Getting that top deck again, was that Jinx's get excited or just regular get excited?
It's the third Jinx, so this is actually the Jinx get excited here.
And we can see Teddy doing the sad poro, realizing that just because of this one top deck, Teddy isn't able to develop the avalanche and kill the Jinx.
It really does shut off any play to win line here. Teddy can't even, like, you have to actually just hope that they somehow brick, but is that even possible? It can't be, right? There is no way you can brick. You need, what are you looking for on Teddy's side? FDR doesn't do anything here. They don't run Tavern
Two
Keep
units.
anymore. You need another
If
catalyst.
Nawatix draws 2 units, you would be able to kill Jinx.
Sorry, hello? We just get another kid excited. Nonsense are just chilling for ages. What's going on? It doesn't really matter if you draw another catalyst either. It's just over. Wow. Okay.
The power of the big flex excites all of us, and getting 3 get excited is absolutely beautiful. And that's game, right? That I mean, I don't know why I said right. I think I can be a little bit confident and realize that this is probably game. I don't know why I said probably.
It's
think
more than game. I don't know what happened there. I've never seen Jinx just keep on drawing multiple get excited. There is something happening right now. The world's aligning. We're like, we can't let Teddy win anymore. What's going on? And with that, this does mean Teddy finally gets a game taken off, and Naruto starts the journey for a potential reverse sweep here.
So that emote battle was really beautiful. Is this Teddy's first loss?
It is
Like,
actually
in
Teddy's
general.
first loss year. Maybe in general over the playoffs. I don't know. There could be a chance that he hasn't actually lost a game at all since now.
Yeah, so as you were saying earlier, Nawatix does have that sweet potential. Like historically, you were saying that Nawatix does do this often, and doing a good showing turn 1 against what we thought might have been like a decent matchup for Teddy, because we thought that maybe Teddy was trying to beat this deck with certain choices within the deck. Although without any whale, I'm starting to doubt my analysis on that point. But if we saw Nawatix getting the triple get excited with the Jinx, being able to pressure forward, and Teddy just not having that Vengeance. If Vengeance was in that would have been a completely different. Actually, maybe it wouldn't have, because you just would have replayed Jinx. Maybe it wouldn't have changed that much.
It could have mattered because you don't get the double draw.
Yeah. Okay.
Overall, so there could have been a potential chance. Vengeance would have been actually the best card you wanted, and instead of that overbearing amount of AoE, sadly.
Forced us to choose death or the blade.
So we're going to go into this game, and we've got the bar deck with Aphelios versus Feel the Rush again. I'm not so sure about this matchup. You said you saw it once, and thus have got your results-based analysis about like how this works. So tell us how this matchup finishes, Eniama.
My brain is a peanut and I can't remember, so I don't know. I'm honestly not sure. I haven't actually seen this in a while. I saw other matchups into FPR, but the only Seraphine matchups I saw were into Lulu Jinx a day ago, and that looked favored. So I can only really give you that resource base of analysis.
So your response to "is this matchup favored" is that you once saw Aphelios beat Lulu Jinx, which is not Feel the Rush, in fact, in any way, shape, or form.
And I can't go off base of stats because stats I don't believe in them. They're bad juju.
You've got a very interesting casting mindset, Eniama. What we have here is we might be seeing an Aphelios. I'm wondering if like cycling Aphelios weapons is valuable or not, but I'm scared it's also going to be like a little too slow. I'm trying to think of like what Nawatix's big win condition is. Like obviously it's going to be the cat, but are we able to delay to the cat enough before we get some sort of like Feel the Rush come down? We can like grow with them, like the Feel the Rush a little bit, but I'm not so sure that we'll be able to actually get through what Teddy has. And like I think Shiho Wonders deletes everything, right? Like is there anything in the deck that Shiho Wonders doesn't delete?
So, unlike the Israel version that is by Vandal, it doesn't delete as much. uh, because you can kind of get stuff like Song Spinner to try and get out of even more ranges. But yeah, it's definitely a bane to any Seraphine player. And Nautix in his mind is like, yeah, I need Song Spinner to try and find a +2 attack or something, right?
I am with you.
Right. We do have double bar, which may mean that on our turn 7 and turn 8, we can just flood the board. And maybe we might be able to win through like some sort of really massive tempo play on turn 8. Massive tempo play on turn 8 sounds very funny to me, where you get like a Seraphine leveled and you like just ping down the board enough and try and push in damage there. And we will have the attack token on 8. So we might be able to do something like bar Seraphine sitting on a fence. I didn't expect me to say bar Black Sheep or anything, but
Yeah.
it just sort of happened.
I wanted to kind of finish that sentence off because it felt so natural. I was about to say it, but you beat me to it. And
Stole
yeah,
your
this
thunder.
no, well, it was your thunder to begin with. You started the sentence. Otherwise, I would have stole your thunder. But Pursuit of the Perfection is like the card that makes this deck slightly better into control. And we actually have it here. She-Who is definitely the one that is scary. We've buffed up the Feros to be better into that She-Who, like we said, though, which is quite nice. And yeah, we're just utilizing this Aftershock to get it out and put as much pressure as possible.
Yeah, this is a really good like tempo-y play where you're trying to put damage on as much as you can. At least threaten that access of lethal. Even if that isn't your access of lethal, like you end up going for like the cat or something, like this still allows you to go for that sort of thing in theory and forcing them to have a Vile Feast or that second Hapless. This is the second one, right? This isn't the first one? Yeah, they had two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so, but Spell Thief is really nice. We kind of like saying, hey, if they have FTR, what do we do? And Spell Thief can actually get the vengeance out if needed, or if they've prematurely played it. But that is if they use one of those spells, right? So we do have to be cautious with that, and maybe even change our play to the point where we can utilize one of their own removal spells.
One other thing I want to mention, watching you play this deck before anymore, I know that one of the things you're really cognizant of is making sure that you don't just play one cat and you keep your iterative improvement to beat things like Vengeance. And so while that's not in the hand now, if we're thinking 5, 6, 7 into the future, if we're going to end up going for a cat lethal, we also want to find something like an iterative or push comes to shove, like generating blood for blood or something, right? In order to have that happen. But this is an absolutely abhorrent Avalanche. Not abhorrent in terms of bad play. It's a really good play. It just feels awful for nowadays.
It really is, and one thing that is quite nice though are these double bars, especially if FTR isn't in the hand. And I'm so glad for Caster Vision because I can be biased here and kind of root for Politics now. Because like, if FTR was a card, then it would get a bit iffy. But Nautix being pretty aggressive, trying to catch up with mana here, I actually really like that play.
Yeah, it allows you to do that sort of pressure point I was talking about earlier with your double bars a little bit earlier and keep that mana for it. I think this is a really interesting play that I think I might have stun locked myself too much into thinking about stealing FTR and trying to like tit for tat their FTR. But if they play FTR early, you won't actually even have the mana to do it, right? Like we wouldn't be able to steal it now had they had it and then play it without the extra mana. So I think that's really interesting. And an open pass here, is that a tell of no FTR?
It could be more about trying to bait them into do something like this and then FTR. Because like you could do stuff here to actually deal with FDR pretty decently. But I don't, it's hard to say at the same time because you're like, oh yeah, that's my win con. I'm gonna go for it. And like I just don't know how I can evaluate these passes because Teddy has been playing these passes so well. It's hard to justify anything.
But we see now the tapping under FTR, and we did get the bar down, and if we get a second bar down, we will be able to do that little bit of pressure I was talking about. I'm not good at counting. Do you know the level up on Seraphine anymore? Or even the cat level up?
It's 9 and then Pursuit is 20, but I don't know.
I meant like currently. I didn't mean like in general, but good catch on calling me out for once.
I don't know either, honestly. I haven't been counting. I usually focus the eye because the eye is what has made me obsolete as a person and a human being. But we can't see it most of the time, and it is at 5, 6 at the moment.
I think so.
Well,
It's at 8. And with Ruthless Predator, we will be able to beat Chihu Wonders and be able to pull things to the side. This Ruthless Predator get is actually really, really good because it'll also buff it, provided we spend another spell out of Chihu Wonders range. So this Ruthless Predator has felt absolutely amazing to top deck. Oh, not top deck, to draw from Seraphine. Draw, I say.
Can we double it now though? That's what I'm kind of worried about because we will have to try and double the Ruthless Predator, and if it's at 6, the
It's at 8.
it's at 8. Did I just
Yep.
misread it?
Our lovely producer showed us by hovering over the
Oh,
card. I presume your eyes were looking elsewhere.
yeah, my eyes were focusing too much on the Oracle Eye gonna open up so I could do the maths for anything. But like, yeah, okay, no, this is perfect then. We do have the Ruthless Predator that gets out of the range of Shihu, and yeah, you open yourself up for a potential pull play as well, and try and squeak as much damage if we could find another unit, which might be the bar being played here.
Yeah, I do think, unfortunately, Bar is our best line for trying to deal damage, unless we can, like, magically set out this cat here. But I presume we're a bit low. If we've only played 9 spells and what, only like a few units, I doubt we have enough for the cat. So I'm presuming it's going to be something like a Bar, maybe try and generate another unit, push 6 damage in, and then see what happens after that. But while that seems like a fine play, it's also not as good at winning the game as you would desire. And so maybe it might be stalling out the game, killing the 10-10, and trying to go for that cat.
So we do play the bar here. Probably means that the cat isn't online yet, like you were saying. If we could get a hover on that by production, that would be great. Kind of abusing these powers now because somehow finding it out. But yeah, we just, I guess, trying to deal with a Shihu and get it off the board.
I really like this. I think there's no reason to let the Shihu just trade into our bar for no reason. It's at 16 out of 20, which is really, really close. We're about to play that by next turn. But being able to play bar allows Seraphine to just completely destroy this 10 strength unit and still push the damage in. Playing bar was really the right play, and I wish I had thought about just killing the unit. I always forget that this unit can die. It's got the regeneration keyword, which presumably means it lasts forever. But here we're able to push in 9 damage, so we're threatening, as I was saying, both axes. We're threatening the damage axis and the cat axis.
Yeah, it's just like, looking at Teddy's hand, it's like, okay, I guess I'm getting rid of these bars, but we know what's in the hand for Nautix, and it's a lot of draw. I'm assuming they're killing the bars as well, right? Like, you're not doing the deal free, that would be ludicrous.
Yes, the bars. There's actually a little visual thing where there's like a little blue lightning when something dies in EMEA, and currently the blue lightning is on the bars.
True. Okay. Awesome. Well, now we know that, and we pick up a Mystic Shot. We're talking about ways to kind of deal with the units while pressuring just like this board-based lethal, and this Mystic Shot means you can actually hit Splitterator and kill it off, and then just play your pursuit into maybe an Aphelios. This is looking really, really sad for Teddy at the moment, and maybe this is it. Nautix might be going to, a second game win against the person who's been, winning constantly.
You mustn't be too hasty though. Like there is a vengeance and there is a harsh winds. Like the open attack may not be that much of a lethal. Did Nautix just try to target their own Seraphine there?
Maybe. I please hope they know that they don't have to target anything else. Okay, awesome. They don't, like, folks at home, high note, you cannot target stuff, alright? So anyone who be targeting their own units, please don't. And Nautix knows, and will now probably play the Aphelios, and Pursuit is a better play, that's for sure.
Yeah, but this won't be lethal and open, and because of the vengeance, we can't actually protect this cat, or protect in quotes by using iterative improvement. We can't actually protect it, so Teddy isn't down just yet, and I'm wondering, I don't think, we just have to worry about Buried in Ice. I was wondering if you can develop, but Buried in Ice would be a blowout there. If Teddy's on Buried in Ice, which he is not, he's on Ruination.
Yeah, this is honestly, it's like not being hasty at all. Teddy is not looking horrible. We actually, get the vengeance out, and we might not even need to harsh ones, but then you lose the mystic. So probably going to be using all of those there, and it gives some leeway for Nautix so to try and get something off as fan club president.
Is there any burn from fan club president? Is there anything we can get from fan club president that hits the dome?
Double Up is a card. Unleashed is a card. You've got what else do you have? Wow, are we
Ooh.
going down to 2 and disrespecting any burn? Okay, I guess it's because
Well,
we
we
have
have Catalyst.
Catalyst in hand,
Yeah. And I guess we're
which
keeping half moons for later. But I think that's a really aggressive thing. But what's interesting is that like Nautix's deck probably doesn't actually run that much burn. I'm used to like seeing these colors, especially like PNZ and Targon, having a bunch of burn. But I think it's probably just like one Mystic and maybe one Get Excited, if that.
well,
But we've got this
burn is something, yeah.
we've got Pursuit as well.
Wow,
As well as Moonlight. All of these are actually decent choices. Depends what kind of lethal you want to go for.
these are insane picks here. I think you can't really go. Can you target your own unit? I don't think so with Double Up, right? Unless this would always be the this would always be the pick if you could. But my brain is kind of yeah. Okay, so you can't. Pursuit maybe could have been an interesting play, and Teddy playing for the outs here and actually gets FTR to try and bring him back. Is there anything that they can do? But decides to Shihu here and be more safe for any potential Seraphine outs.
I'm wondering what to do as Nautix, because we're losing 2 of our units here, especially a value unit such as Aphelios and our Seraphine. We could Mystic the Dome and then Thermo the Tenten, but then what do we do? How are we winning after that? And I'm just a little bit concerned at Nautix. By the way, this Ascended's Raids has just been bricked from the start. As soon as we got it off bar, it just hasn't been doing anything. Do we run Discard? Surely we run like one Zornite Urchin, hopefully, right? Or like Species Sketcher?
I think there might be a rummage in the hand, and you know, Shihu was definitely the correct play to get any engines out of their hand to get back in this game. But look at that top deck scenarios, and Seraphine is put back into the game here. Goes for the pass. Interesting. Just all of these passes are so insane. We're just waiting for a potential, mana sink into this FTR, and like Teddy can't really do anything else, right? Like, if he passes, you're going to do it next turn, and then you're just going to play Seraphine and have so much potential mana to do. I love this pass here.
To go back on what discard things there are, there is both Rummage and Zordite Urchin as well as Species Sketcher, so this card will probably get value in the end.
Ooh,
The Puff Cap dealing damage. We've got Draw 2.
Wow, that will actually be lethal.
Have we played Mystic? We haven't played Mystic, right?
Well, we haven't played Mystic. That Puff Cap's insane. This means that Nautix actually getting the great draws that they can with the Seraphine and the opposing draw of the Puff Cap. Can't even remember where that came from. The mystical go to face, and we get rid of the person who was haunting the whole league. Nautix gets back into this game for Big Flex gamers and brings it to a set 4.
That was an insane game, and I'm pretty sure the Puff Caps came from a Crescendum Clump of Wumps. I think. Because Clump of Wumps isn't main decked, and so I think Aphelios was on the field by then and would have been Crescendumed. So absolutely so lucky having that Puff Cap. I don't think it did any other damage besides that after so many draws. And that was also a great get from Crescendum back. Like, if you think about it, it procced Seraphine once, which was important. If we only had one burst spell at the time to level up Seraphine at that moment. And that was just really well played by Nautix, taking down someone that's been undefeated for so long.
Yeah, I mean, like, for Big Flex gamers here, you honestly must be so happy, right? Because there are some great other players. You still have to get through Yang Zera, a person who's hit, top cut a couple times, has finished around rank 1 last season. It was around there. Such a great player. And then you have Karashi. There's a lot of great players you have to still go through, but just for a momentum swing, this is really, really impactful for Big Flex gamers.
You gotta feel good as big flex gamers. I can just imagine them like flexing their muscles, looking towards Earth, and just like praising him. But I presume we're going to a break here, and we'll be back shortly.
Hey everybody, back to another, Aegis finals. TA Washed Up Heroes versus Big Flex Gamers, and we just saw Teddy, the giant, the dragon, get slayed by Nalytics, and yeah, doing pretty well. Big Flex Gamers now back into a chance to win it, and I'm excited to see this next set going on. How about you, Spids?
I'm pretty excited. I don't know why I use so much fantasy analogy to refer to Teddy when he is in fact a real person. But I'm really excited for this game. I think I really like Yang Zera. Like I've watched him a bunch on the Squadcast. I think he's a really intelligent player. So I'm really excited to see how he takes on Nawatix, who has just shown Teddy like who's boss.
For sure. And I think people forget about Yang Zera because Yang Zera is like very off and on, right? He's a person who can basically be good at any game and might, play Hearthstone for a month just because like he's just such a really well diverse player and understanding his understanding of like depth and card game is very immense. So he's brought a very interesting lineup, and I think with the capabilities of how he plays and how good he is, he might gain some really nice results here. And now we've got a deck to show off, and it's Ziggs Talia. Spids, I know you played this yesterday, so any thoughts on this list and what it hits?
I did not play this yesterday in
Oh,
EMEA.
my
I've
bad,
never
my
played
bad.
this deck
Sorry.
in my life. But my teammate Jansports did bring it from memory. I hope I don't actually remember. And it's a really powerful deck that does some really powerful things in this meta. My understanding is that it's supposed to beat Aatrox and it's supposed to beat Control because it's such a high power deck with all your like combo-y tools with like Explosive Minefield plus Talia or Talia being a 10-6 for some reason. And then combining that with stuff like Herald of the Magus, Absolver, pushing in a bunch of damage, and then all of these are like massive plays with things like Endless Devout, Desert Naturalist, Rock Bear Shepherd, Rite of the Arcane, Rite of Negation, Unravel Death. All of these things just like pressure so much, and they're so like mana efficient when they actually work properly, and they just have so big stats for some reason. There's a 5/5 and a 5/3 in this deck, and they're somehow really, really cheap and easy to access. This deck is really, really powerful and is good at beating control stuff as well as like certain types of mid range. Not all types of mid range, but certain types of mid range. So it's a really powerful deck to be bringing.
Rock Bear Shepherd, honestly, one of the best additions to this deck, and it adds so much consistency to it because, like, this deck felt so awkward to build, and now getting Rock Bear Shepherd as an additional support card allows you to kind of build it better. And even though some people are still iffy on their one of, it makes the deck feel more consistent and a more reliable game plan than before.
I always find Zooxalia lists, at least before Rock Bear Shepherd, I found them difficult to know what to be running. There's all these spells that make some sense, and there's like weird ratios. Like, I don't know how to feel about the certain amount of Absolvers, whether you run Arsenal or not, how many pokies, how many drop the bombs. But adding Rock Bear Shepherd allows, it just makes the deck feel better that you can like feel very comfortable with your followers. Like, the followers right now are pretty much stock standard with give or take on Arsenal, I think. And so you can just like put all your resources into the deck building in terms of the spells only having one quicksand, only having one unravel death, one absolver, two pokey stick. I don't know how normal that is. I'm wondering what pokey stick is hitting, or if it's just like good stuff value. Because I know a lot of people have been taking out pokey stick, but I really like now how these decks are built. Just because Rock Bear Shepherd changes everything about how this deck is thought about. You can genuinely go for like 5/5s beatdown, in addition to your 10/6 Talia.
For sure. So, like, the Arsenal is probably the most interesting addition. Obviously, it was nerfed by the natural keyword change that they did because of Pantheon and RNG being kind of awkward and annoying. So even though it can't gain Scout anymore and be the bomb it was, you just like slightly increase your control matchups, and I think that's definitely what Yang's going for because this lineup that we'll actually be seeing right now is very anti-control while also bringing a control deck themselves. But a bit awkward because like I don't see any control decks on the side of Nautix besides
Would you
Seraphine.
not call okay, I was gonna say, would you not call Seraphine Aphelios a control deck? I think that's kind of true. I think Young Zero is definitely trying to beat up on like certain types of mid range and control. And I'm curious how like Pantheon Varus feels into Lulu Jinx. Do you have any thoughts about Pantheon Varus into Lulu Jinx as well as like Katarina Leona? Because this is like a blind
Oh,
spot of mine. I don't know how this deck plays very well.
you just gone. Pam Ferris is just crying. It'll probably be the ban. You don't want to see that at all. But then
Really?
again, you do have Cat Leona, which might be as aggressive, and like Varus, the only reason why it doesn't really get as much play as it should is because of aggro. Anything that runs you down is just so horrible to do anything to try and win the game is, and it's like a very polarizing matchup into anything aggro. It's very similar to timelines that sure it hits Demacia, it hits control, but anything aggressive and you're not gonna have a good time.
Right. I'm imagining the Leona deck into Pantheon Varus is a bit awkward just because Leona will stun constantly, and Pantheon Varus might only have 1 or 2 units that's actually like staying on the board. But Pantheon Varus obviously has like Furious Wielder and Unforgiving Cold, so I think that could be like a really close matchup. You might be able to kill Katarina and then just sort of like make them cry there. What do you think the ban is from Nawatix onto Yangzera's field? Do you think it's like a Talia Ziggs ban?
I think we're comfortable enough to keep up maybe FTR like we saw in the last matchup. So I think maybe we do ban T-Zigs. T-Zigs has, Rite of Arcane that might be a bit awkward for these decks, and it also has stuff like Naturalist, which if you're a Seraphine player and you think there's going to be brought up, it's a bit awkward because like maybe you've been struggling your mid game. The only bomb you have is that bar, and then you just go, "Oh, Naturalist, it's gone," and that must not feel good.
I think I would agree on a Talia Ziggs ban. And then you were saying like a Legally Jinx ban from Yangzera's side. If this is like a greedier FTR list, I can definitely see that also being justifiable. And I mean, we saw in the last game, Lily Jinx absolutely demolishing FTR through just like triple get excited and Jinx. Um, what does Katarina Leona do into the other decks? I presume it beats FTR and is even into Talia's X.
I'm not too sure how it would be into T-Zigs. T-Zigs might be favored just because you can kind of combat with the aggression in a sense, kind of. And then you have stuff like Rite of Arcane. You also have, you know, your Rock Bear, which will be very nice into their mid game potential. Yeah, it's quite it's decent, but you might be banning Louis Jinx if not the Cat Leona, and it's just sad because like Nautix now is very happy that he's probably facing FTR again because this format you don't need to play multiple decks, and if you do, you could get punished. And Nautix must be happy that they brought double FTR.
Yeah. I presume for the Taliazix and Leona, Taliazix plays the 3-3 and Leona just like loses. Right? Like the 3-3 that summons a 5-3 that also happens to summon a 5-5 if you play a 2-4. Numbers are fun, but they're not fun to fight if your numbers are smaller than theirs. So I can expect that. And I think you were right about like this format incentivizes you not to bring decks twice because like Conquest is all about like beating up on a singular deck sometimes. And so if you bring a deck twice and enemies know that you're going to be bringing that deck twice, you can really wail on them like quite effectively. So double bringing FTR, while a powerful deck in the format, may end up costing tier washed up heroes by just losing themselves to an anti-fielder rush lineup if this is what this is going for. And we saw last time, maybe this is an anti-fielder rush lineup.
Yeah, like so last format, I would kind of bite those words or just bite my tongue on that and say, yeah, actually, how this is kind of the versus is like you can actually just play the best decks because the best decks at the time were literally beating anything. But due to how like everything has happened and due to the patch notes and the nerfs, this isn't the case. And there's so much more variance of playstyle and targeting that you can't just bring two people on the three best lineups because if there is one good counter, they can just swing with that and wow, yep, we get the T-Zig's ban here and just Yang Zero taking it out with a Cat Leona doesn't want any funny business.
And we might see a repeat of this Lulu Jinx versus FDR and this Aphelios versus FDR if just because Katarina was banned this time. Was that Katarina the ban it must have been, right? Katarina was the ban last time as well. So they're really respecting this Katarina Leona deck. Is it really that powerful?
It's just it can kind of just like win games just abruptly against like FTR because they just keep playing units and your avalanches don't really do anything because it naturally just goes into this aggro to mid game game plan because of that Sun Guardian that it just makes stuff really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I guess like What I've noticed is that the 3 drops are really mattering in, like, all of these. Like, it's Lulu, it's Sun Guardian, it's Aphelios, it's Ziggs and, like, the 3/3 can't Last Breath guy. These 3 drops are really important in a lot of these decks. And just, like, it seems to be, like, the most powerful card for a lot of them.
For
Which doesn't
sure.
matter at
And
all for, like, matchups or anything. It's just, like, I heard the number 3 a lot, so I thought, "Let's make a comment on the number 3." My brain is not but a pattern recognizing machine.
yeah, and I'm definitely not thinking about free a lot because Henneke made a post. Who is the Aegis Twitter manager about Tribeam being missed out? But like, who cares about Tribeam? That card's not good, but maybe it's a fan favorite
Driving.
because of the basis of just saying freeze. Like free is just such a great number.
Yeah, I think 3 is a great number. Don't tell Jin I said this. Or just, like, buying time until the game starts.
Yeah, yeah. Don't show Jin my custom card, which is literally just free, free, free. Please no. Jin's just
Oh, I
like
forgot
laying
about
there.
that. Why is it 333? I think you've explained this once.
It just it looks good. It looks good as a aesthetic standpoint.
You've got no
Um,
special reason for the 3s?
nah, it's just aesthetics.
You had the opportunity to insert an Easter egg into your card and you decided not to. I'm a little bit disappointed, Annie.
Uh, uh, like
Oh,
I
we're in
said,
game.
P brain. But now we don't need to stall for time because we're in the game. Woohoo! Zornite, pretty good. Jinx, I think we're probably gonna keep it because of how low Jinx was last time, and I'm wondering if Yang Zera might have saw the downfall of Teddy's game and keep Vengeance.
Especially if you've got Avalanche already, I can definitely see Vengeance being a keep, right? You've got an answer to some forms of Go Wide. Now, Avalanche is awkward against Go Wide in some instances because it's slow speed and because you can't play it on like turn 2 or something. Because 4 mana is hard to buy on turn 2. Um, so I think that it might just be like Avalanche and Vengeance keep. Would you keep Trundle here?
I think if I'm keeping Avalanche and Vengeance, I don't want Trundle, but
Ooh.
we just okay, interesting. I do not like the Vengeance throw, I'll be honest. Just because how I've been seeing people actually beat this deck as Jinx Lu is you're really understanding all of their threats and you just dwindle down their board, make it so it's hard for them to kind of do anything with their sneezy, and then they have to play for that Jinx line, and then you just kill the Jinx. Um, that's usually the best way to beat Jinx Lu as much as reliably can, and just find that Vengeance allows you to not have that potential.
In Young Zera's defense, how would Young Zera deal with like a Lulu, right? Like you need a way to ping off Lulu, and you need to do that by having something like the Feral Mystic and like damage-based removal such as Avalanche, Bladed Ravine, Vile Feast. So I actually think it's possibly justifiable. We just know that it's a Jinx hand, not a Lulu hand. But looking at Young Zera's hand, 2 bricks has to feel awful for Young Zera against a deck that you really need to get that early stuff to deal with it, lest now ticks like pop off.
Having a really nice turn two here is pretty good. This vial, it's like you have a set on it, right? You might pass just because it's not really doing much. You don't really want to trade into the squeaker, and killing off the Zornite prematurely isn't good. But like you were saying as well, we need this vial for the Lulu just so that the Avalanche can be a full board clear.
This is a really tough decision. Are you passing, are you vialing, or are you waiting till next turn? You can ramp next turn, which is also really good for you. And we saw like Teddy earlier, like really prioritizing this ramp in order to have access to more types of removal and to get to certain ranges quicker. So it could be something like start with Feral Mystic because you still get the blocker from Feral Mystic. And I don't know if we know that there's no Chompers because we discarded the 1/1. I presume you would discard 1/1 before Chompers, but I'm not entirely sure about that. And we see the Lulu, which is absolutely beautiful for Nawatix. But Yang Zera did get Blighted Ravine, which I think is also a really powerful card for Yang Zera to get. It may just be like a little bit awkward depending on actions and timing.
Yeah, I'm wondering now, like we can we afford playing Avalanche? It's just like okay, it's sad because if they play Lulu, then it's a bit worse. But maybe because we have Ravine, it's all right. Then like you can't really Catalyst here because then they just kind of roll out Woodless Lulu. So you might just pass, but it's not horrible because of the Ravine. It just doesn't feel great at the same time.
I think a pass can be justified because you can do like an open vial if they open, and if they don't open, you can do like a development punish, such as Avalanche. I was thinking it was going to be a Feral Mystic just because it sets up a blocker for really no issue to yourself, and you can still do that stuff I was talking about earlier. So I really do like Feral Mystic here. It is a blocker of some sort. It would lose if we had a Chompers in hand, because we'd be able to Porra Cannon out the Chompers. And I'm wondering if we could actually Biggle if we really wanted to beat Vile Feast, but that's probably premature because you probably want to Biggle on the Porra Cannon, right? Although
You
we
could
could do Porra Cannon and no Lulu.
yeah, you could actually go for the 2-mana free and Poro Cannon. That actually might be better because you have a 5/5 and then you buff up your whole other board. You have a 4/3, you have a 3/2, and then a 3/3 as well. So that's 6 damage, 10 damage, 13 damage, and they have to block through the big person, the 5/5. So honestly, I really like this 2-mana free into the Poro here, and Nalotix agrees. Gonna go for that line, and this is a scary amount of damage on the side of Nalotix.
I think this is a really good play from the side of Nawatix here, realizing that Yangzera can't really do much. Like, there's no sort of card that does 2 damage to everything at fast speed that just doesn't exist yet. I actually don't think that's ever been printed, right? There's nothing that does that? Not in any region?
What type of card?
2 to all on open. There's nothing, right? This is like a completely
Sure.
sideways point. It doesn't matter. But we'll just do the open attack here with the Biggle Dust. And what is Yangzera gonna do? A Vile Feast to heal 1? Probably just a heal 3, but like this is really bad for Yangzera, but really great for Nawatix.
Vilepheast is just, yeah, it's such a pathetic it's such a sad play. But we do top deck the Flash Freeze. Gives you a bit of room here because that was exact lethal on that point, and obviously can get out of the Vilepheast range, but puts you down on 6 here. Now, this is still okay for Yang, right? Because we have kind of these avalanches, we have these ravines and Vilepheast, and something I brought up earlier was that Sneezy kind of has to be played for a complete lethal, otherwise you might not be ahead in this game and just fall flat, and this gives a bit of time for Yang.
Yeah, it does give Yang time, and Yang does have some opportunities to deal with stuff. Nawatix can't develop, but I'm wondering, or it doesn't look like he can develop because of stuff like Ravine killing everything. But is there a line where we can flip Jinx on our next turn reliably? Like, guaranteedly. I'm trying to figure out if we can, because if we can level Jinx, it's again another instance of no vengeance. Jinx stays around. We've got 9 mana, so I
Get
think it should work.
excited. So if we get one more mana card, I'm pretty sure we can.
If we get a 1 mana card, we can't get the rocket though, is my understanding.
I was gonna go Jinx into 1 mana card into Get Excited. Oh no,
That's
you're
9
right.
mana, yeah. But that's still fine, we get to flip Jinx. But now I've got an interesting choice here. I'm wondering what Nawatix will decide to do. We still have to like vaguely respect a few things. I think a development of Poro is just fine, see if they want to do anything first. I would like to see a bit of pressure from Nawatix because we are starting to get to the turns where Yangzera can threaten lethal. Now, fortunately, we know there isn't much of a lethal here. We do have Tryndamere plus Battle Fury, which will probably put Nawatix on a 2-turn clock, like playing Tryndamere and then attacking on the turn after. But that is slow, and we do have the Jinx to sort of like make that not happen as effectively.
And Jinx just not being able to flip this turn is really awkward into Yangzera's hands as well, because this Avalanche Vial is just really gonna pinch Nalatik's mana here. Like you just don't want to feel like you want to play this Jinx at all on the basis of maybe them having those cards, and like maybe we have to just go for this open, but then again, then Vial just actually just makes that such a sad play.
I think it's fine to do the open. Like, it does get this out, which means you can start playing your Jinx and stuff. Although, like, it's debated if you want to do Jinx, you might want to develop your units first, because you can't... Unfortunately, you can't play units with spell mana. I don't know why they haven't added that update yet, but... if we did play Jinx, we wouldn't be able to play Baboon, which means we just wouldn't be able to flip, like, Jinx in any way, shape, or form, or, like, pretend to. So we might do, like, a Baboon here, I'm thinking, trying to get, like, Jinx on the next turn. If we draw a 2-mana unit, though, we may not be able to flip, depending on what happens. But we'll see what happens. I think Yang Zero really wants to get a Vengeance or a Feel the Rush right now.
Yeah, Yang Zero's probably baseline is that FTR top deck, but Trinimir isn't horrible either. You also have Clytus up. One thing that is good though is at that stairs, like probably your best play and well, not best play now, but the best card to top deck because Yang Zero has just been kind of floating through like slow play and fast speed potential spells that it's making Nalytics be so awkward on like how much he wants to develop, right? Because it, just this whole time it's just been like slowly been drawn out that Nalytics has just been scared on multiple plays chances and has only found the potential chance now to play this Jinx and get a rocket.
This Tryndamere was like really unfortunate. It was both Yang Zero's best play, but also Nalytics' best thing to see. Because now Nalytics can justify the get excited, can get the rocket, and is very likely to get the rocket next turn. And if Yang Zero doesn't draw any healing, and Nalytics gets some sort of like Poro Cannon or Squeaker or something, that will just be lethal. So it's going to be reliant on Yang Zero's top deck, and we'll see what happens. But Nalytics could very easily just take this game away. Another beating of Feel the Rush with this deck.
Yeah, like maybe that says was actually malign, just because you like remove any, you remove majority of these attackers, and then also if they do play Jinx, they can't actually get any, board damage going through. So it's hard to say because at the same time you really want it up for a potential with unison of like something like an avalanche to kill the Jinx, but it might just be too slow and knowing Nalytics, he's just gonna draw another get excited and just not worry about anything else here because that's what I would be scared about seeing that last game versus Teddy.
I think I do like the Tryndamere. I think if Nalytics has Jinx, Yang Zero cannot win. While Tryndamere plays to win, puts Nalytics on a 2-turn clock, while It That Stairs doesn't really play to win. So I do kind of like the Tryndamere play, even if it looks like it's losing, because unfortunately it seems to be. And while physical damage won't be the way that Nalytics wins because of stuff like Harsh Winds, whatever the top deck is, if it's anything that says discard, if it's is there like a unit plus a burst speed spell? Is that something that's in the deck? I don't think so. I guess a unit plus a Beagle Dust is focus. We could do Beagle Dust and then a unit to get it as well. So there are a few draws that Nalytics can get that would just be like an instant win.
You've Jury Rig and Beagle Dust
Oh,
is
Jury
something,
Rig, okay.
but I'm still I want to talk about this at that says because if you do play at that says, you'll also be pushing 8 damage. That's because their only unit would be Jinx, and they're not going to trade down that Jinx. So there is way to kind of put pressure on while being a bit more safe here. And this Quietus not really being played, and this Trumpet being able to pull out, and it's fine because like we can heal, we can use Hearthstones here, but this just prolongs everything, and all Nalytics has to do is play Zornite, and that would be the game decider if I'm not mistaken.
It would decide the game. I still don't like It That Stairs because It That Stairs can't get Overwhelm, and they don't run Atro, so like dealing damage doesn't matter unless it's Overwhelm damage. And being able to do Tryndamere and then into Battle Fury, you would need to do like It That Stairs into Tryndamere into Battle Fury. So I'm not the biggest fan of It That Stairs still. I'm still on this point because it's very obvious that we're going to do the Zonate Engine, we're going to do the Rocket, and that's going to be a win for Nalytics against Yang Zero in this matchup. Is Nalytics 3-0 now so far?
Yeah, we'll wait till
Against
the
Feel the Rush.
actual decider because you never know. Maybe DC, unfortunately, and then I don't know. That might be the first thing that would ever happen in a broadcast, and then we'd all be stunned and be like, "Oh, this is weird." But yeah, FSCS comes down, and sadly, this rocket will be the ender for Yang Zero in this first game, and Nalytics will be going to the Seraphine again. So interesting to see what will happen in the next game.
I'd like to go back to our mulligan. We got rid of Vengeance and we drew a Vile Feast from it. Vile Feast was great in that matchup. Like Vile Feast pings something off and blocks. But had we had Vengeance, that would have blocked 8 damage from the Jinx and had that assurance. because we already knew we had Avalanche. We already had some answers to go wide, even if it's like a bit awkward because it is slow speed, it is like delayed. But if we just had Vengeance again, it would have been able to beat that Jinx. And I think in future, if I'm going to play FTR, I think I'm going to be keeping Vengeance against this deck because every single time, that's been why we've lost.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've just been saying it over and over again, and all you want to do is literally neutralize Jinx Lu's board, make it that you know the sneezy isn't actually a dynamic of a way to be a win con, and then you just shut down that Jinx Lu because they've put so much pressure on to try and put all those units on board, they won't really have much, right? And if you can kind of do that and justify a way to keep that vengeance and say, hey, if that is the case and I get rid of that jinx, you'll be very, very favorable in that matchup.
Going into this matchup, I'm noticing two cards. I'm noticing Field Rush and I'm noticing Spell Thief. And Spell Thief was kept. I'm curious why Spell Thief was kept. I presume it is for that Field Rush, but it's a very interesting keep. We saw this matchup once. We saw Nawatix get some really interesting rolls with both the double bar, the second Seraphine, getting the puff cap from a crescendomed 2-2 create more mushrooms in hand. And Feel the Rush was also kept, as well as Voices of the Old Ones drawn.
Voices is probably what you're looking for in this matchup. I was gonna say like the spell thief is actually maybe just for the mana. It's like you just spell thief into Catalyst and it allows you to kind of keep up with them, but maybe we might do this more defensively if they go for the old ones play. And yeah, I think we're just passing him for days and going for, Catalyst into maybe the old ones play and go for FTR as fast as possible.
Yeah, the first few rounds probably won't matter too much because I think the game will get a lot more in depth once we have seen the ramp and we have seen the bar. I guess now is trying to get like and Yang Zero both trying to get like incremental little bits of like value, but for Yang Zero that incremental bit of damage is the ramp, and for Nawatix, we can't apply that much pressure. We can do something like naked Aphelios without nightfalling him. I mean, we can Spell Thief. Can you
We
cast
can't
Spell Thief? Spell hasn't
we
been
can't
played.
play naked fellows, but he's on a broadcast. He needs to wear pants. But yeah, no, we can. We can play naked fellows, but like I don't. We can't play spell thief, so it just yeah. There's no nightfall. And I really do want to not see. I want to pants on the fellows for this game.
We can't currently see if Aphelios has pants because the card only shows the top half. We could have done Mystic Shot in theory, but I do like this pass. It's sort of like we're ramping in quotes because we're getting closer to our bar, while Yang Zera isn't able to ramp because if they want to ramp, then we can develop our stuff and do damage in. So I do really, really like this pass, and it's forcing Yang Zera to decide, is the ramp worth it? And I would imagine as Yang Zera, it is. But it's just like forcing them to actually make that choice. And if they make the wrong choice and Nawatix might think they have that opportunity, then this pass is really, really good by Nawatix.
Yeah, these players just love passing, and it goes back to that game where they versed Teddy, and it was a similar situation where they were playing Heimer Jace, and they had a very obvious turn that they have to use their mana. Nalytics is just understanding that, being patient, and forcing them out so they have a better idea of what they want to do this turn. And it leads to so many things. You can Mystic here into Philos, you can even do some Zornite plays. There's a lot of nice stuff, or you could just kind of ramp out.
I really do like Mystic into Aphelios. You get to do the Nightfall. He will no longer be naked. He will have his pants on. And we'll be able to delete something that was probably going to block stuff later on. And I think it's just a really good play. Doing that pass, seeing what they would do. The alternative, if they didn't have the Wild Mystic, would have been to do Catalyst, and then we may as well make them do Catalyst before we strike so that the damage adds up. So either way, no matter what ramp card they had, it's much better to have passed there. So I really like that Nawatix play. And now they're at the 5 less HP. And we're stealing, you were right, we're stealing the ramp.
You also do this for the Hextech Acorn. Oh, so beautiful as a play because it allows you to actually play Mystic here on turn 4. Nalytics just showing why is he being underrated, or why don't people talk as him as much? Because these plays are so just crucially correct, and the small increments like this go a long way.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until it happened. I'm really glad you pointed it out. That's really beautiful. Do you still think it's the right play on this turn? I presume it's giving him the extra mana, so it is. But if will Yang Zero play Trundle here, or will they bank mana for the voices? Do you know? You don't know yet. They haven't done it yet. But what's your expectation, rather?
So, okay, like voices is nice, but it gets very awkward because you can't actually go Trundle into Pillar. You have to play voices, then Trundle, then Pillar, and it's a very slow play to do. Obviously, you have FTR, but it's still not pushing that much potential threat for lethals because, like, you'll just be chumping a Trundle, right? So Yang Zero doing this makes a lot of sense. Don't fall into victim of trying to just go straight up to the voices because that won't be as good, and he's just pacing it out.
I'm curious what Naotix's next turn looks like. Is it going to be Kresk into Zornite into the other weapon? If so, does Zornite discard anything? Or is it going to be Kresk, Seraphine, another weapon? Or is it something else entirely? I'm really curious because all the cards in hand look really good for Naotix here.
I think if it's a Graviton pick, I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to pressure as much as possible and make it hard for them to try and play a ramp card here.
How do they
So
get Graviton? How do they get Graviton anymore?
does Crescendum not make Graviton? We could discard, but I guess we phased into Crescendum, so that would probably not work.
Crescendum does not phase into Graviton. It phases
Right.
into Severum and Calibrum.
Right, okay, so I guess we just Crescendum here. There's like, yeah, the Zornite play doesn't work either. Like, I was thinking maybe you discard it, but it just goes to the initial phase and you're doing nothing with that.
Personal path opens before us.
Ooh. Chempunk Pickpocket's really interesting to me here. It forces a block on the Chempunk Pickpocket, which means we're either getting the Chempunk Pickpocket to hit or the Aphelios to hit if we attack with both. I quite like that a lot, actually. And we do discard what we drew, which was High Note, and we do get Calibrum. Unfortunately, if we want to play Calibrum, we have to hit one of our own units, unless they play, like, Pillar or something. But they do decide to block the Chempunk
Wow.
Pickpocket.
Punk has to be prioritized, and this is also 8 damage now. Pretty good. Like, sure, damage doesn't do much when you're a control deck, but it gives you a potential outs. Mystic Lines with Seraphine is obviously something, and this goes into Yang Zero's turn, and the Ice Pillar will be played with a bit of a few things here, like the If That Stairs, or maybe, yeah, I don't really know what else you might play here.
I'm curious if Severum was ever the... I guess no. I guess Aphelios was always getting vulnerable. I was wondering if we could take Severum to, like, beat If That Stairs, but because Aphelios gets vulnerable from the Ice Pillar, Severum was never the play. I presume it's just going to be, like, a bar, like, accepting that Aphelios is dead and going for a bar lane. I guess we're going to force them to kill Aphelios, so we will pass here. Just showing Naotix loves to pass and force the opponent to actually do that play and never give them information that they don't need to have. In addition, Bar does just die to If That Stairs.
And like Europe just showing why they are sometimes better players because they pass. Like, if I was an America's player, I would have just slammed bar and go bar, like be so happy with it. But we didn't have to slam it straight away, and we get to just pace it out. But that says comes out to defeat that card anyway.
Now, one cool thing about Trundle is that because he gets strength equal to the amount of, like, 8+ cards you behold, Naotix now knows that there are 3 8+ cards, 8+ cost cards in Yang Zero's hand. So it got buffed by the Pillar, it got buffed by the If That Says, and now there's 3 more. So Naotix knows at least, like, a very good hand read that 3 of these cards are going to be super, super expensive. What he'll do with that information, we don't know just yet, but it is something to keep in mind when fighting this Trundle deck.
For sure, and this is like, it's pretty interesting on the side of Nautix. Like, I guess we have to play it slow here, and it's just awkward though, because like this Trundle is just a threat that you can't really, deal with. So I'm wondering our best line. I'm not too sure what Seraphine would be at. We might, if Seraphine is close to flip, there is a chance to kill it. The Ravine might be no, Ravine won't do anything here because it will regenerate, and then I guess there is.
Ravine should be after the regeneration, so Trundle should be on 5 attack by his attack turn.
Yeah.
Because regen happens at the end of round and Ravine happens at the start of round, from memory.
You could do it afterwards, so going down to 5 after this turn means you can some Mystigate, but like they got FTR, so yeah, I'm a bit scared because this might be too much pressure. You know what's it's actually really funny. If we didn't play this Ravine, We could have actually just done potentially got the pursuit to not be played here if it was active. That would have been a really interesting line, but I don't think it's needed because it isn't active. And yeah, I think Yang Zero here trying to get back into the game and playing FTR. Is there anything that Nautix can actually do here?
Yeah, do you see the card next to Broadback in EMEA? It's a little fan favorite
uh,
again.
no, I don't know what that card is.
Oh,
I don't know what that is.
well, I'm gonna explain it for the people at home. This is, actually forget the name of this card. Suncost. It puts a card back into the enemy's deck for 7 mana, and we can afford it plus Sump plus Mystic. The only issue is that we would need to generate a card to be able to afford the Sump to kill the Tryndamere. So I think that just one little bit of action is going to cost us. We have to generate a card in order to Sump you.
And we just we can't do anything here. Nautix knows that the math is not here and can't block. Overwhelm gets through and Yang Zero ties it up, goes 1-1, which is pretty exciting because if Yang Zero does win this, they take it home for the grand cash prize.
Yeah, but if Nautix gets this, they're still in it. They can still have one more win, and Nautix, the sweep. Oh, can I say the sweep king? Has he swept enough to be a sweep king?
He skipped once, so let's just go with it.
Okay. I'm scared a sweep king sounds more like a janitorial position rather than like an LOR like ascendancy. But it was an absolutely phenomenal game, and we saw some amazing passes from Nautix despite it not resulting in anything, which still shows like how good of a player he is. Even if it doesn't result in anything, just the actual plays themselves are often more important, at least in my opinion, like when watching to learn, following what's going on. But we're gonna see Pantheon Varus versus Bar.
Okay, this is interesting. I feel like maybe going off old stats, Varus is slightly favored. Just very, very slightly. And I said stats, so please don't please don't bring it up because they don't exist. But maybe like it's close, but like it is slightly favored, I think.
That makes sense to me. Like, Nautix is going to struggle to deal with like Varus himself and like Pantheon himself. While there is damage-based removal, the way these decks often function is that you just play like a 1 mana plus 2 HP. I don't know where they get it from, but they just happen to have this in their deck. And then it sort of just like protects it from all the PNZ damage-based removal. And since they can kind of reliably open attack, stuff like Gravitum doesn't really work against this sort of deck. So while Nautix can sort of like attempt to pop off, Yang Zero will probably kill them like the turn before Cat would get online, is my expectation. And so I think Yang Zero should be favored. I'm in agreement a little bit, but we do have Hex Split, which could actually come in like massively in handy.
Hex Split with a ping would be nice if Pantheon doesn't roll Spell Shield being played on maybe their attacking turn. But Heedless was also such a good pickup, so we might actually see like Yang Zero play very, very ambitiously into that. Because like I don't think okay, so I don't think Heedless is good at all, but you might actually just play Pantheon out because you have double Pantheons, right? And with decks that have like combo type power spikes, you really want to find the best way to win, and just double Pantheon on your attack turn will definitely be the way.
I know there was a period in time where you played a fair bit of Pantheon, and my understanding of what you would explain to me was that against like control decks, what you really want to do is you really just want to spam out like Pantheons. Like I know Pantheon's the strongest card, of course you want to spam out Pantheons, but this idea of like repeatedly applying pressure with a Pantheon is really, really powerful. And you used to tell me not to play Pantheon before his level because you want to be rolling Spell Shield. Is that only against like Noxus control decks, or do you still think it's kind of true? Yeah.
It's in this situation because you run Heedless, you're fine to actually throw it out. But traditionally, with something like the old school Pantheon, how you verse kind of control decks is you wanted to sit on your Pantheons as long as possible and just wait till you could know for a fact that one of them are going to stick, or you're going to put them in a weird forking position that you know you're going to be winning the game after that. Roji was like such a great pioneer that I honestly think he doesn't get much respect for Pantheon and the way he played it. He would literally just do nothing. Just like do nothing against control, play Pantheon with 8 targets, they all go, oh, I gotta kill it. Now they don't have any removal and you play the other Pantheon and you just win. So it's a similar situation here, and Yang Zero is just doing what they can to proc it up and go for that double Pantheon line.
Tough weapon is coming quite in handy. Tough is such an amazing keyword against PNZ decks, and getting that from the Shepherd, I think it is the Wandering Shepherd, to protect like Pantheon against like damage speed removal is really going to come in handy for Yang Zera. And I think Yang Zera is just in like a really beautiful position. Like we've got enough targets, I think, to level up the Pantheon. We've got 3 Pantheons in hand in Avaris. We've got Spell Shield just in case. While it might be a little bit awkward to proc the Pale Cascade at some point, I feel like Yang Zera is just like looking really amazing here, and Nartix might need like a bar or something in order to play his own game plan quick enough.
And this expanse is like good and bad because I think like obviously we want the healers to be being able to be proc, but this expanse just being a way to kind of level up Pantheon as fast as possible while making it really awkward means Nautix might need to go like might need to really force as much as he can to try and deal with this Pantheon.
This is a really interesting attack. It's because we've got the tough keyword, like it's going to trade into Aphelios and be favorable. It puts it into bigger ranges, but because it's got like tough and faded, and presumably whatever buff's that's gonna target it is gonna buff its HP. Like Nautix can't justify like dealing damage-based removal here. I wonder what Nautix is gonna try and do because none of these plays seem particularly good for Nautix. Is it just like a rummage to look for stuff at this point? Like, what can Nautix do? What goes on in Nautix's brain, and what is he thinking about?
Nautix, what are you doing? And hey, maybe there was like some weird syncing up and heard your brain links, and maybe this Carson was like, yeah, rummage is good. Had to look for anything because like this is such a horrible hand. You can't even really hex obliterate, right? You can't even thermo because expanse being a 2-mana spell shield is like such a horrible thing to even play around.
And we see Pantheon Shield Vault, the only like really easy to access proc. I was gonna call it a plunder proc. I've been playing too much plunder recently. Like a really good proc for the faded because we can't do Pale Cascade. Well, we'll miss the draw out of it. And Spell Shield's really good for like pre-Seraphine hands. So I do like the Shield Vault. It's unfortunate because as we were saying, like one of the ways you win is just by spamming Pantheons. But it does seem like this Pantheon's going to be living, and so we can keep this Pantheon around and then heedless after this Pantheon's already flipped and applying a lot of pressure. So I do like the Shield Vault, even if it does mean that we don't have as many Pantheons in hand.
Yeah, wow, on the pass here. I think so. Like you can kind of resort to using that shield vault because you're put into a point where you know you're ahead and you understand that they have awkward mana points, right? So you're kind of happy that if they kill the Pantheon here and you just heedless, then you have Expanse also backing it up, and you know that they can't deal with anything, right? Because they had such a tough time dealing with the first one.
In addition, like I think playing Rummage might have been like a little bit of a tell for Yang Zera. I think playing Rummage prematurely is very rare for like Seraphine decks because they normally play it after Seraphine to just draw 4. And so playing Rummage there, I think tells Yang Zera just a little bit that Nautix really feels like he's in a struggling position and needs to draw stuff now and be mana efficient, which is not a tell you want to give to a Pantheon deck.
And Yang just trying to get as much threats as possible. We are into the state of game where we're dealing at least 9 damage with the Pantheon. Gravitum does come out. I assume we're just going to play this slowly here, but what this allows is Furious Wielder to be played with a backup of Expanse if we want to, do a bit of pushing here. But the Vulnerable, I like that a lot more because it flips Pantheon, maybe get a Spell Shield, and also goes for a potential Varus flip. Do we get it?
Really interesting. I would have done Furious Wielder, I think, to destroy any future chances of Gravitum. We do get the Spell Shield. We get a bunch of really good keywords. Actually, do we? Hold on. I get Quick Attack and Challenger. They're alright, I guess.
Pretty good. But this means that Expanse can't be played now, which is sad because you can't double up Spell Shield, so there's a bit of good stuff here, but it still can't be played, and we just trade down the Aphelios. Not as impactful as Yang wanted, but it's still looking pretty decent for him.
Like, how does Nautix deal with anything here? I presume they're only on 1 thermo. I don't know how Nautix can even attempt to kill Pantheon. Is there like a Hush or something that could come into play? Like, this Pantheon, with that tough keyword, is just like absolutely blowing damage space removal Nautix out of the water here.
It's so awkward because you can't really rely with Hex Obliterator as well. because of Pantheon actually just gonna go to that 6 health of tough, right? So you're like going, okay, if I can't really go for that line, what's the best thing I can find here that doesn't result in my hand? What are my top decks? And it might be trying to go for a Seraphine or maybe go for a pursuit that is potentially flipped, but it's hard to say if it is because I'm pretty sure we haven't played 20 spells at the moment.
I've pulled up the deck list. I think the best thing Narmatics can get is a Sunburst. Even still, a Sunburst doesn't. It's like a temporary solution to a permanent problem because there is the Heedless Resurrection. But I think that's what Narmatics needs to go for. I think it needs to be a Sunburst, and I can't imagine anything else being enabling Narmatics to win besides, like, I don't know, bar into Wallop or something.
This is so it's scary, right? This Pantheon just being a 12-9. We keep this Pantheon on the board because we've invested so much into it, and now we've just got Heedless as a backup. So we've kind of traversed around our play, and talking about maybe something that will change the game is Seraphine. Seraphine having the ability to get any 2 random 2 costs is absolutely insane here. Could get you a stun, not the potential you want, but you got Pale, you got other stuff, but another bearer of bad news is Furious Wielder just comes out.
Is there any other stun besides Steel Tempest? Was it just only Steel Tempest? Was that the only thing that Seraphine can get here?
We've got Shield Vault, but it's not good enough because, you know, it's a slow speed one. So Nautix now has to go for, I guess, maybe units. We're trying to find units now to be a blocker, but Overwhelms just go over the top here. This is looking really, really bad for Nautix, trying to find anything they can so that TA washed up heroes aren't 2-time winners. I don't know what we can get here, Spids.
I don't think there's anything. I think we're about to announce the champion of Aegis Season 2. I do wonder if Some Fumes was better. It doesn't play around Heedless Resurrection, but I think that might be like our only play to not die here. Because there's no Hush, is what I've discovered.
Right, okay, so if there's no Hush here, depending on no random top decks. Sputtering, but no sputtering, and this means Yangzera does take it. Nothing that they can do. No cheeky business. Gonna draw it anyway in case the America's Import wins it for TA Washed Up Heroes as a team, and they will be back-to-back winners. Just gonna go through and do the business and do all the random stuff, then Nautix throws out the GG, and that will be game. Really well played by Yangzera here.
Absolutely phenomenal game. TA Washed Up Heroes has played absolutely amazing, as has Big Flex Gamers, right? I think we've seen some absolutely amazing games from, like, all of these. I've really enjoyed watching all of these, and good job, TA Washed Up Heroes. They really got what they deserved with that win. They've done so well, like, throughout the entire season, and also winning, like, a prior season. Like, they are the team to fear, like, constantly.
They are nuts, honestly. Like, I'm glad as well that Titty kind of was, because it was almost going to be the Titty show, right? And as a team league, we want to showcase it because we don't really see the back end of it. We don't see how much prep, you know, the other players do. I'm pretty sure when Karashi hops in here, he'll have a lot of, like, talk about, yeah, this was our strategy, and we'll be able to dissect, like, what was really the plan here. And I could also be wrong. Like, they've got Yangzera in the team, and I know Yangzera also traditionally just picks 3 random decks and just say, hey, I'm pretty keen to just play these. So yeah, I'm really happy to see if they can get in here for an interview.
I don't know when that interview might happen. Okay, it seems we'll be taking a short break before the interview might happen, so stay tuned for an interview with the winners.
We'll be right back. Hey everybody, if you didn't just see what happened, TA Washed Up Heroes took it for the second time for the Aegis finals, and we've got a bit of good news and some guests on the show now. So welcome TA Washed Up Heroes. How was the win?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm a bit sad that I didn't get my triple sweep, but still happy that we won.
Yeah, I'm happy that I didn't even have to play, so it's fine.
I'm happy. I'm happy that I shut down 3 different stories at the same time.
Oh, true, yeah.
There was no 9-0, there was no triple reverse sweep, and there was no full German finals.
Oh,
Yeah. It was the storyline was kind of like Teddy has been kind of a monster throughout the whole league, right? Just absolutely just winning every playoff match, and it was kind of sad and good to see that you have other players on the team, and seeing Yang take it was a really nice refreshing moment.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Also, there's still one storyline alive. Like, not to humble brag, but I'm currently the only one with a 100% win rate in Aegis
Yeah,
playoffs.
because you
Just
didn't
saying.
have to in the
Just saying.
playoffs.
I won 3 out of 3 games. That's enough.
From last season, yeah. This season
Yeah.
you won 0 out of 0.
Yeah. Good enough.
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about that because we have been kind of reiterating this is a Teddy show, but it isn't. And I wanted to kind of talk about your prep because I know Kurishi, I don't know if you're saying your name right, but I know you do a lot of the prep, and I just wanted to see kind of what was your strategy going into the finals.
Yeah, I mean, this season I think we did less prep, at least like stats wise and matchups wise. Like a lot of the data websites are down right now, which is pretty sad. But yeah, I think we had like a pretty good lineup. Like in this meta, there's like a triangle where you can play Teddy's lineup basically, which is just good into aggro and generally good. And then there's like a counter lineup to Teddy's lineup, which is what Young Zara basically brought, where you try to farm field rush. And yeah, I had to sacrifice myself and bring aggro to be the third one that actually counters Young Zara's lineup. So whichever, since it's last man standing, we have to have one lineup that can sweep. And if we like target all angles, it should be fine.
Yeah, I was curious about the lineups in specifically. That's not a word. Like the specific like cards that you were choosing. Like Teddy had some really interesting cards in Heimer Jace, like not going for Ruination, instead going for like the Piercing Darkness. This was all just to focus on like the aggro matchups.
Yeah, especially Lulu Jinx. So my lineup kind of wants to leave Lulu Jinx open, even though, I mean, if there are no other scary decks in the opponent's lineup, I guess we ban it. But I think my lineup has to play against Lulu Jinx most of the time, and I want to be favored into it with Heimer Jace as much as possible with the Piercing Darkness. Yeah, and we weren't expecting that much Vayne Aatrox, to be honest. So the Ruination is really good against the Demacia, right? Where they make a big board and you just clear everything. But apart from that, I think the Ruination is not that needed. You can always just get it from Pharaohs if you really need it. There are like there's like the Ruination and the 11 mana pseudo Ruination, right? So you have options to hit the Ruination if you need it, so I didn't want to main deck it.
Yeah, that's completely justifiable. Was there another question you wanted to ask anymore?
Yeah, I do want to talk about Yang Zera's lineup a bit more as well. Yang, were you just trying to hit like every potential good deck that wasn't Lulu Jinx?
Yeah, kind of. The idea is like you can kind of play against Lulu Jinx. Like it's kind of cope to play against Lulu Jinx, but the idea is just going against an aggressive lineup. You just like ban the Lulu deck, and try to have game against everything else. I'm just kind of targeting the lineups that have like SI piles and field rush. And then in the end, I just added Talia Ziggs instead of Sundisk, which like I have Sundisk in my base lineup. I brought Talia Ziggs to this one just so like you can have more of a game into aggro, and you still have the same winning matchups against SI piles. So like it's just do well against both mid range and control, and like just ignore aggro decks.
Right. Yeah, I was you kind of baited me, Yang, because you were talking about your lineup and you're like, oh yeah, Glorious Shellfork, could be a thing. And when I see this lineup, I'm like, oh, true, all right.
We also
Yeah,
checked
so like yeah,
I wanted to
we're
add
trying to.
that we tag the FTRs differently. Like we both brought FTR, but I will always ban FTR with my lineup, so I have like 6 AoEs and less top end and a bit less ramp. And Yang is like playing against FDR, so it's like more mirror tech as well. So we made like a decklist adjustment for that strategy as well.
Yeah, so we're kind of like trying to build like see if Seraphine is good, still good because Seraphine like does okay into these like more slow decks like Heimer, Jason, Nora. Because the interesting thing about these lineups, as much as it beats Fielder Rush, if you're against like Fielder Rush, Heimer, Jason, Nora, it's better to actually just ban Fielder Rush because the decks are better into the other the other two decks. So like you can play like Seraphine, some bar decks, and like we're looking at different options, and like Glorious Shellfolk was one that came to mind, and I really try to make it work in like in best of one scrims against some BR friends, but it just wasn't like better than Talia Ziggs and Sundisk in the end.
Yeah,
Is there
it
any?
makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
No, you go. I've been taking over. You go, Spids.
I was just going to mention, like, what were the most interesting moments of those games to you? Because Enema and I found like some amazing, interesting passes, some really interesting decision points where you went for one card over another card. I'm curious what you guys thought were the most interesting decisions that you guys took, or the scariest positions that you guys were in, if you remember. Or maybe there wasn't. I don't know.
No,
Maybe you can
for
find the whole way through.
Triple get excited.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to have one spot off the top of my head, but I think in the Vayne Aatrox mirror there was like there was one turn that was like very scary, because in the second mirror it was against. Wait, which order did I play that again? It's been so long
Second
already.
is Ghoster Driver.
Yeah, against Ghost Driver. Yeah, because I felt I was behind all game, and there were like very interesting moments with fish fight interaction. Like I thought he was gonna fish fight my Quinn if I equip a quick attack weapon. And I just went like for a damage pushing line where I threaten lethal and try to make it so that the world and the cost doesn't matter as much. Yeah. So I don't like there wasn't a very specific moment I would say, but all the game state was very interesting. I think I navigated it well.
yeah,
Certain. I think you
the
played
scariest
really
moment for me was like game one where I chose to like ramp on turn 3. Like it's debatable if it's the best play. It's like the most scary one because you know he's on it's just a big old ass deck, so he's threatening to kill me at every time. But I feel like I kind of played the games pretty well. The only questionable decision was like playing Tryndamere on turn 8, because like I could just pass and threaten Harshwind's Quietus on the Jinx like every time. But I feel like if I don't play the Tryndamere, I'm not like winning the game. And if I give him more cards, there's like a chance that I just lose because I ran out of healing in my hand. So I felt like I had to go for the kill with like Tryndamere, and then I even played the Avalanche to like incentivize him to open attack, and then I put Harshwinds on the stack and then Quietus. the Jinx, like if they didn't draw like burn and stuff, to just win with the open attack Battle Fury. But I feel like I played pretty well. But the first game was super like Monka to play. It was very stressful.
I think the decision was really good, especially the Avalanche. Crush and I didn't see it when we were like spectating. I think it was really good to incentivize the open tag for sure. It was like it's a risky play to play Trinidad, but I think it was necessary.
Right. And now the very important question: what is everyone's favorite animal?
What?
No, I'm just joking. All right, all right. That was just a
Am I
fair.
supposed to say a bear? Or?
No, no, no.
If you
It's an
don't.
inside joke. All right, all right. It's an inside joke. No, back to the games though. I was also wanted to talk about the Pantheon lines that you were taking, Yang Zero, because I think when you're in a spot with Heedless, there is not really a good time to ever play it. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on like if you're kind of going for that, and then you're also like doing weird pinpoints, and I just want to like go back into that moment of like where you decided, hey, I'm just gonna lead with this first Pantheon and not even care about maybe going for a double Pantheon line.
Yeah, it's because like the only ways that you realistically lose this matchup is if your Pantheon dies and you can't start threatening lethal anymore. Like if your Pantheon dies early, so like you need to get those faded procs as much as possible, and you need to put the Pantheon outside of the Hexbladator threshold, especially because I had Heedless. So like if Pantheon gets Sunbursted and like Sunburst Mystic Shot and he dies, I can still Heedless the Pantheon back. But if he loses to Hexbliterator, if he dies to Hexbliterator, I'm just not getting another Pantheon. And like I was kind of forced to play the Pantheon spell to get the Faded procs going. So it was like mandatory that I just played it slow and try to close the game out.
All right. Well, yeah. Spiz, do you have any more questions for the new and returning champions?
I don't have any questions, so I guess it's time for like shout outs and stuff. Like, who do you want to celebrate? Who do you want to thank for having such an amazing win? Or do you just want to thank yourselves?
No, I would just mention Kobachi first. Like he's not here because he's playing some MTG tournament, so he couldn't play with us. But yeah, a lot of thanks to Kobachi with playing for us. Like he won last season as well with us. Yeah, I think it works pretty well. Like how our team functions, and yeah, we are winning a lot of team tournaments apparently.
Yeah, also thanks
Yeah,
to Young Sarah for like subbing in for us. Like it was really nice to be able to have someone and not like if you we played like all the tournaments before with only 3 people, and like when someone couldn't make it, it was always very very awkward. So it was really nice that you were subbing in. So
yeah,
thanks for
I
that.
want to thank everyone on the team for like having me and like trusting me because historically it's a very strong team of 3 people, and like the opportunity to be a part of that team is I'm very thankful.
Sweet. Well, with that, I think it's time to let you all be and celebrate. So I think, yeah, thanks everyone for popping by for the second season of Aegis, and we'll see you for another one with potentially, who knows, maybe the champions will be TA washed up again. So yeah,
Yeah, we
cool.
might need to change our team name. It's not very representative anymore.
You can just make it heroes at this point. You've already won so many times.
TH right up.
I've
I
actually
don't
got
know.
an emergency announcement. Sorry to cut you off, but I have to bring Hirsch in here because I'm not too sure what it is. So, Hirsch, you kind of want to run with the rest of this and finish it off after this?
All right, I do this for pretty much the every end of the season, just as like a thank you to everybody. I did this for AM, and I'm now going to do this for EMEA. thank you guys so much for coming out to Aegis Esports. Without your guys' support, we wouldn't be here today. Without all you amazing people in this community that we have basically brought together, it's just amazing how far we've come, and we've got more going on the way too. We have an upcoming circuit soon. I don't know if Fred announced details of it yet, so I won't leak too much about it. But yeah, thank you so much to everybody in this community. You guys have been fantastically amazing. I've seen so many people just grow throughout this entirety of these from the start of this season, or the start of the actual league. It's just so awesome to see everybody just grow in their skill. But I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you once again. You guys have been awesome. Casters, you can send us out.
All right. Well, yeah. I'll send us out again. Thanks everyone. Be back for the next season. Maybe TA Washed Up Heroes might change the name again. Who knows? But good having you all, and we'll be back eventually.